Hello, Guardians, and welcome to Destiny Reset, episode 125. This podcast is about anything and everything related to Destiny the game. If you love playing Destiny 2 as much as we do, you're in the right place. This reset, we welcome back Joe Meaden to help herald the arrival of the Curse of Osiris, unpack the new changes to Season 2, and give our initial thoughts on Osiris and his infinite forest. Hello, Guardians, and welcome. It is Cyborg. It is not AER0KNIGHT, unfortunately. And I'm here with Joe Meaden. How you doing, Joe?
Fantastic. Had an amazing week in Destiny 2 and cannot wait to chat about this game with you.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty to talk about this episode with all this new content to dissect and talk about what we loved and everything in between. Unfortunately, Arrow can't be with us this week. We do miss him, but don't worry, he will be back. But Joe, as usual, is a great person to come and fill in. We know that you love Destiny. We know you love to talk. Mm-hmm. So you fit in just fine with us, right?
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. It's good to be on the show. And the last couple of times I've been like, I don't know if they want me to be on the show. I'm kind of like really frenzied about liking this game right now. So kind of go against the grain of the typical community member these days. So
that might be true, but it's good to have a positive voice. And it's good to have different opinions. So
absolutely,
there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, I don't want our show to just be an echo chamber. So that gets boring real fast.
Yep. Well, I'm glad to be here, and hopefully I can. We'll get some spice going here a little bit later. So should be fun.
Absolutely. Well, how was your week, man? How's it been?
I was telling you this before we started recording. This may have been my favorite week in Destiny 2. I had a blast, and just about everything in the expansion, all the quality of life stuff, all the balance changes, like I had a blast. And we'll get into some of the particulars of, why I enjoyed it so much. And a lot of it's just getting to trial the new things and trial the different, the different surprises they had in there. And I am so thoroughly, pleased with this expansion and have just had a blast. So it was a great week. It was a great reset. How about you, dude? How'd things go for you?
It's been kind of a crazy week for me, so it was really exciting with Curse of Osiris dropping. Got to play that as much as I could this week. In the real world, meanwhile, we had a freak snow storm. I don't know if you'd call it a snowstorm, but to us it was like a snowstorm.
I think it qualifies. If you're in Louisiana, any kind of snow counts as a storm.
4 inches of snow, which is like the most I've ever seen in my lifetime here. Ton of fun for the kids to get to play in the snow, and we got to play with them and had a fun. We basically, the whole city had a snow day Friday. But then on top of that, my whole family was sick. The baby and my wife and me were all sick while this is all going on. So just trying to get through the weekend, get everybody well. The snow melted. It's pretty much back to normal come Monday, but and then getting to spend tons of time exploring Mercury and all the new content. So it's been a kind of a crazy week, but a good one at that. Well, good. All that being said, so I'm glad to be here to talk about Osiris and all this cool stuff. So let's get this thing going. We've got a quick announcement. Why don't you give this to the clan members, Joe?
Yeah, sure thing. So we got a bunch of clans. Clans are fun. And if you're part of one of our clans, we just want you guys to know that we are going to be cleaning house for inactive members. But don't worry if you're saying, wait a minute, Joe, I haven't logged on in 2 days. Am I safe? Answer, yeah, you're safe. But Joe, I haven't logged on in a week. You're fine. Basically, if you're not enjoying Destiny and you're off doing other stuff, we wish you well. But we're going to start culling members that have gone for more than 30 days. For me personally, as for Red Team, I'm not going to kick anybody out until you're gone 60 days. So if you've logged in for anything in 2 months, don't worry about it. You're safe. It's going to be fine. And if you get removed, you can always just contact the clan leader and say, hey, I'm still interested. I just, my dog has eaten my Xbox and I'm getting another one for Christmas. We'll add you back in. Everything will be fine. If you get any questions, you can just drop them in the clan chat in the Discord. And once again, like if you're listening and you're part of our Discord, you don't have to be a part of our clan to just chat, hang out, and be a part of that. So you can always just post any questions you have in our clan chats for your specific clan, and your clan leader will hook you up, help you out. It'll be great. So for just about everybody, don't worry about it. But if you kind of moved on from Destiny 2 and it's not your thing, that's totally fine.
That's totally cool.
Yeah, it's totally cool. And feel free to hop back in later on if it tickles your fancy and you feel like jumping back in. So we're always happy to bring you back. We're not mad at you or anything. We just want to make sure we have as many spots available for active players as possible.
Yeah, we want to make sure we make room. We're not really at a point where we can add more clans because there's a number of people who aren't necessarily playing Destiny 2 right now. So we just want to make room for those that are. And at any point, if you decide, okay, I want to come back and play some more, then you're still welcome. We want to make that clear. This isn't a negative thing by any means, just a making room thing.
Yep, absolutely. And I know like for PS4, we have like a fairly lengthy wait list. I know I reached out to all the guys that were on the Xbox wait list. There were 3 of them today. Yeah, so like
so many PS4 players.
A lot more. So it's mostly for the PS4 side. If you're on Xbox, send me a message. I got a spot for you. So but yeah, we just try to make spots for people and make sure that people that are active are getting a chance to play with people and see their friends list populated.
Yeah. Total tangent, but it just made me think about this, that I saw a news headline yesterday that Sony has sold over 70 million PS4s. Can you
That's insane, man. That's crazy.
Like, I think we can say they probably won the console battle this time around. I'm an Xbox player, so that number just like blows me away. But there's so many people that have gone to PlayStation, which kind of shows, we see in the community it's a little bit lopsided because we see more Guardians on PS4, which is fine as long as you're playing Destiny. I don't care where you play it, but it's just interesting to me.
And it's interesting because like, PlayStation just started the generation so strong. I bought a PS4. I was an Xbox guy, and I really didn't like the way that Microsoft were pitching their product, and I didn't like the deal with it memes. I didn't like the, always online requirements. I didn't like the Kinect thing. It felt like Microsoft was kind of, forcing the product that they thought I needed down my throat. Yeah,
they had a weird vision.
They did, and so they were right, which is kind of funny. Like, basically all of our games are online now. So it's kind of funny because they were right about it, but the way that they presented it just was really alienating to gamers at the time for me personally. And so like I bought a PS4, but I barely play my PS4 now. I'm back to Xbox, and that's what I play almost all the time. I love the Xbox, just the way that they've designed their stuff. And I think Phil Spencer's doing a great job. The cool thing though, I think that's the through line is that for gamers in general, console gaming is alive and well. I remember at the beginning of the generation, people were predicting, console gaming is dead and, it's all over for consoles. And like, dude, it's the strongest it's ever been. And it's exciting to be a part of just a continuing gamer culture that gets so many awesome things to play, especially in a year like 2017 where it was an unbelievable year for gaming, no matter what platform you play on. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right on that. For sure, especially with, how strong Nintendo has come out this year as well. Like, the Switch is knocking it out of the park. And then we have the new versions of I guess if you wanted to call it like this generation 0.5 with Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. But it ends up being a win for most consumers because you can get a, like, Xbox One S or a I guess I don't know if it's the PS4 Pro or the other model, but you can get these for like $200, which makes it a lot more affordable for many people. Or even if you want a second console, it's even more affordable. Like when I bought my Xbox One, it was $500, and when I bought my PS4, it was over $300. But now you can pick up these machines and have a comparable experience to anything for like a couple $100. Pretty cool.
Which it's incredible. Yeah.
Makes it accessible, And even PC gaming is growing as well. Like I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I just think that there's more players, there's more families playing games or consoles or Switch or whatever it is,
Yeah, I think one of the cool things
too. We're in a good time to play games.
Yeah, and one of the cool things too is the variety of experiences that exist. Like, you look at the Game of the Year stuff, and for like the Game Awards and many other outlets, like you had games like PUBG, which is an early access game, right? That's only multiplayer on PC, right next to a game like Persona 5, which is like this Japanese, single player, 100+ hour campaign, right? Right next to Mario and Zelda on Nintendo consoles, right next to Horizon, which is this incredible open world game. And then you have everything in between. Like you've got stuff like Cuphead that came out. You have all these different types of experiences. And like in a year like this year, they're all excellent. They're all great. And it doesn't matter what you want to play. There's a game like Destiny 2 out there. There's Shadow of Mordor. There's Assassin's Creed. There are all these different types of experiences. And no matter what platform you play on, no matter what you want to do, there are amazing experiences to be had and a variety of amazing experiences. So it's cool to see gaming develop and grow. And I think this has been a cool year for gaming personally. And I've loved it.
Yeah. There's so much cool stuff that I can't keep up this year, and it all has to bleed into next year. I'm super excited. I got a Switch, that's coming from Santa Claus that's currently in his bag of toys, so to speak. So I can't wait to crack that open and play on my Switch on Christmas and get to play a lot of what other people have played this year. But then I got a PC and got to play a lot of cool PC games this year, and that's like changed my opinion on like a lot of games and like opened up my experiences on what I could play and what games can be, So there's a lot of potential. I think next year could be just as awesome with a lot of the games that are coming out, and a lot of things we don't even know that are going to come out next year. A lot of things that will be Destiny 2 will come out next year, I'm sure too.
Yeah. Speaking of Destiny 2 and the amazing games that we have in 2017, one of those games is Destiny 2, and we got some awesome information directed at us from This Week at Bungie, our patches, and even the Curse of Osiris DLC itself. So let's get into
that's a great
some
segue.
of the stuff
let's
there.
Talk about the news.
Yeah, it's exciting.
This week at Bungie, we launched Curse of Osiris. Of course, they posted the Curse of Osiris launch trailer. Very cool stuff. Along with it came Destiny Update 1.1.0. With just around the corner, Destiny Update 1.1.1 with more changes, with some things I know that we're looking forward to. We'll have that to talk about next week.
Masterworks. Oh, I'm so excited.
I'm excited about that. I was actually like, man, it sucks that it's a week behind because I'm getting all these legendaries this week, and I'm gonna just want to get them again as Masterworks. Like I know they're probably got it out when they could get it out, but it would have been so awesome if we had them this week. But
I think in some ways it's even better because, like, as much fun as it is to like go through all the content, like one of the things that the Destiny community has wanted with Destiny 2 is like more reasons to play, right? More reasons to like really invest. And I feel like having it a week off, like even if it was like, I do agree with you. Like I think they put it in as soon as they could get it in there, right? But I think it plays to their advantage. Because players like us who just, I put so much time in this week. I'm very motivated to put a ton of time in next week for all the things that are happening. So it's awesome.
Yeah, overall, the Masterworks thing will be cool because it's an additional reward from anywhere that we can normally pick up legendaries. We'll have opportunities to get those, and it'll give another layer to what rewards can be, because kind of sort of right now, like there's new legendaries in the wild from the expansion, but I'm still getting a lot of the existing stuff, because that loot pool is so big. So I think it'll definitely make me more excited to get legendary drops again.
Oh, definitely.
because I'll be chasing after those because, you know, it'll be cool to have those extra sort of perks on the guns and
it's going to be exciting.
All that stuff. Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be a lot of like experimentation to be done because I feel like some of the Masterworks weapons and their like the stat boost they give will be better in PvE versus PvP. Like certain guns are going to lend themselves to like, okay, well this stat's already very good, you know? So I can kind of like boost this other one, or, you know, I'm not going to boost this one because it's negligible, like the addition that you get. So I'm going to go with a different one. So I feel like there's going to be like a whole meta to figuring out how to like navigate which stat bonuses you want on which guns. And that may be even something that changes as we get like balance patches and adjustments. Like it might change how we want to even approach, you know, those boosts and where we place them. So I think it's going to be another puzzle to figure out. It's another like, just more content, you know? And and I think
it's another layer to the game.
Yeah. And I think the game just benefits from more of these layers. Like, I think every time they add something like this, it makes the experience richer and more, and enhances the reward that you receive from playing. There's
the
just
quality of life, just requests and desires and that whole conversation is, you know, prior to the expansion was a really big conversation. Lots of people were having, lots of things were said. Even as soon as last week, we got lots of communication from Bungie on that. And my attitude on that particular aspect of Destiny 2 right now is that they've communicated their intent. They've communicated the philosophy they intend to use to answer the communication they've seen, and I felt really positive about that. So from here, when I talk about quality life stuff, like I'm totally content with like allowing them to do what they've said that they're going to do in the near future. And kind of, you know, we know already it's going to be kind of a trickle of a couple things here, then a couple things here, and a couple things here is kind of how they laid it out. And let that stuff kind of come out and see how it impacts the game. I think it's all going to be positive, you know, net positive for the player.
Yeah. And Bungie really has evidenced like a tremendous ability to take the feedback that we say. Like we say we want more investment, we want more choice, we want, you know, the types of things that random roles provided for us. And Bungie made design decisions about roles that I think, you know, I think I've talked with you before about how I think that static roles are a net positive. I really do. And I think that like what we gain from static roles are significantly more than what we lose from what we used to have with random roles. And I think that them hearing the community, you know, asking for these kinds of things, like they've always been so adept at like understanding what's at the heart of what we want, what we're hoping for, the type of experience that we're hoping that is enhanced, and then coming up with a system that answers that, but it isn't what the community asked for. You know what I mean? Like they didn't just give us random roles like a lot of people were asking for. Instead, they kind of asked the question, well, what are they missing? Like what's not there that was?
I've said in the past, like, I think that one thing that Bungie does well, and they've shown this in the past, and I've outright said this in the past in similar situations, is once they get the feedback and they are really taking it and deciding with intent, like we're going to answer this feedback, they're really good at figuring out, well, what is the core desire for the player, or what is the need, whether it be, you know, for some players or for all players, whatever it is. And how can we answer that in a way in the game that will be fun, that will be interesting, that will, you know, surprise you? And they're always really good at not giving us exactly what we want, but answering the request, answering the need that we have as players in a lot of the times in a better way. And so I think that it's just kind of up to us to like deliver our feedback in the best way that we can, constructively, in a detailed way, and then let them as designers, you know, flex their muscles, like do what they do best. When they really understand what the player wants, I think Bungie excels at delivering it. I just think that, I think in some ways, like, they're a really big studio, and they're sometimes not as nimble as they would like to be, or as they might have been when they were a smaller studio, you know?
Yes, definitely.
And I think that's just part of, their identity as a big company that has to create a lot of stuff and has a lot of people that go into it. Like now that they've kind of changed their pace and their direction, it will take some time, but I'm positive on that entire situation right now.
Absolutely. And I think
it's just up to them to do what they do.
Yeah, like you mentioned, they really are excellent at ascertaining the core of what we want and then answering that need through a system that isn't what we asked for, but fulfills what we asked for. You know what I mean? And that's, I think you're absolutely right that like, that is one of Bungie's great strengths. And like one of the great things about what Bungie does is that when they release something, it's going to be great. It might not be when you want it. It might not be immediate, but like it's going to be great. And it's going to satisfy the question that you've been asking for, that they're trying to meet with that specific, with what it's doing. So I think it's really awesome to see them, like you said, flex their designer muscles. And I'm impressed that with them being so big that they can answer that so well, I guess is the right way to put it. That they do such a good job in answering those questions rather than, being all over the place or knee-jerk reacting to everybody.
Yeah, I think that they have the benefit that they can look at data, and I think that they do the best job when they have data and they have a lot of feedback.
Yes, agreed.
Because then they can weigh both sides of it. They can see like, okay, what's really happening in the game, so they can look at a particular thing that's happening, like how a player uses a weapon or how often an activity is played. And then they can look at what opinions are on the internet or all these different sources, and they can see like, okay, is this just one player's complaint? Is it a many players' complaint? Is it happening as much as the perception is? I don't know. There's a lot that goes into, I'm sure, the process of like how you decide to, okay, let's add a feature or let's change a part of the game. Anyways, we could go on and on about this, but this is all like, how do these things happen? But moving on through the news, so they didn't announce right out of the gate when the new raid lair, which is called the Eater of Worlds, would come out. I think we all kind of assumed it would be like this current week, but they did finally announce that it was available Friday morning, and of course the race for World's First was on, and the team that won it, congratulations to those guys. It was not a pack of super high profile streamers or anybody you expected. It was a group of some talented clan members that got together, and so that's awesome for those guys. I watched there was a little clip that somebody had put up from Twitch, and it was their reaction when they found out that they won, and they lost their minds. And I thought it was so cool that just some awesome Guardians just were able to pull it off. Even Gathalion was like, man, sad we didn't get it, but really happy that somebody like this did. So that was a cool thing to have happen.
Yeah, he frequently has said before when they go for it, like even when they won World First, they said we don't want to be the ones that win it. Like, cause we're a bunch of high profile streamers, like people watch us and like, this is a big day for us, but like, we want some no-name person to win it. Like somebody that nobody's never heard of. Like we want them to get the recognition because they like practiced and they worked hard. And they like understood the mechanics and they worked well together. Like those are the people we want them to get the attention and the spotlight, cause we already have it, I appreciate that mindset, and that's definitely, it was fun to watch for sure. I watched part of Gathalion's team play. I did watch like the first half of it.
Yeah, which credit to them. I think they came in on a close second. So
yeah, I think they were like 6 or 7 minutes
together
behind.
really
it was
well.
Close.
They're able to play the game a lot. So I'm sure that they're really good, you know. But it takes a lot of teamwork to like get through these things blind and be able to do it efficiently and fast, you know. It's admirable what they can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and we're going to talk about the raid layer a little bit when we come up to this.
Just general impressions.
We don't want to spoil too much about what's in there if you haven't gotten there, but we'll talk about some general impressions going into it. But hey, man, it's back again. Faction rallies return December 12th through December 19th. Who are you going to pledge, Joe?
Okay, so I don't like Dead Orbit. We'll just throw that out there. But
fair enough.
But
I'm in that club.
But gotta put the big but there.
Okay.
I love the Dead Orbit armor, and I have the full set. And I'm gonna go for the ornament. So I want to ornament the whole set.
Is what we're seeing the ornaments?
Yeah, what we're seeing is the ornaments. So
okay,
we'll talk a little bit more about the ornament system when we get there. But like, I think the ornament system is extraordinarily awesome. It saves on vault space. It gives you multiple looks for the same set once you have it. I have the full Dead Orbit set. I thought that was
clever.
Yeah, and so one of the things is, so like actually right before I came over here to record, I was in the tower and I was like dumping all my guns away and like getting ready to log off, right? And I get this message from somebody and I'm like, what the heck's going on? Because I was just chatting with Andy Man and I look and somebody said, dude, sweet outfit. And it's another guy with full Dead Orbit set. And I had mine on too. And I was like, no way. And so we just like chatted back and forth for a little bit in the tower. We're like dancing together and stuff, you know, normal tower shenanigans. But it made me so excited. Like, I can't wait to get my armor ornaments so that I like the new look better than the old one.
Show them off.
Yeah. Like, and I like the way it looks on the Hunter. So that's what I'm using it. So I don't like Dead Orbit in general. I think that they're a bunch of emo kids that, why leave Earth? I love Earth.
So realistic, man.
Yeah. But man, it looks good. And I kind of want it.
They do look cool.
I do
like the Dead Orbit ornaments better than the vanilla armor that you can get.
Yeah, I do. So to answer your original question, I cannot wait to play Faction Rally. I am going to pledge to all the factions. I'm missing a bunch of weapons so the last Faction Rally that happened, I love Faction Rally, but I was out of town, so I missed it. So I'm like, got a ton of weapons to go get. Yeah. And because I have that armor set, I want the ornaments. So I'm going to be doing a lot of ornament hunting on my Hunter.
Yeah, I'm curious about the weapons because they don't specifically talk about what the weapon rotation is going to be. If my best assumption is that maybe they're going to have the whole pool of weapons that we saw in season 1.
Yes, I believe that will be the case.
That would be great, so you can pick up stuff that you haven't had before.
Well, in the database, in the database, they've added four new weapons, in addition to the one that we're playing for each faction. And if they follow their pattern, which their pattern is that generally they do not remove guns from the loot pool, because otherwise there could be a gun that somebody gets early and then it's not accessible anymore. Right. It's possible they could do that, but I think it would be a change from what they have done previously. So I think it's likely that they will put the new weapons in, weight them heavier, which it seems like they're already doing for the Curse of Osiris legendaries. Like, they're dropping more frequently than the other legendaries. So they'll probably weight the new ones, but make the old ones still attainable, which I think is the right way to do it. I missed the last faction rally, and I'm probably not the only one, so...
It looks like all three of the winning prizes are auto rifles.
They are, yeah.
Like.
They're all auto rifles.
So we got a Viced. What is this future war cult?
That one's like the forward path, and it's like I don't know what rate of fire it is, but it's like the forward
maybe not
path.
A specific foundry.
Yeah, and then the Hake one is that one's like a super high impact one. So, and those just got a buff, which is
they did.
Really noticeable. Like I had the half dandy, and that thing was garbage. And with the buff they gave it to like stability and handling and whatnot, like I was using it in strikes. I'm like, this is good. Like it's very usable.
Which I like the high impact auto rifles. I've always liked that class.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're feeling pretty good right now.
I'm, of course, the new Monarchy guy. The ornaments look super sweet.
Mm-hmm.
like with all these lions and the gold trim, and they just look really smooth. So I'm excited to work towards the ornaments.
Yeah, me too.
From what I could tell, it looked like when I went to the vendor and I looked at the ornaments, unless I misunderstood, it seems that if you open an ornament, it opens up for all your classes.
That's correct. So it works the same as the ornaments for, like, I've started completing the strike ornaments for the Vanguard set. And the way that it works is when you complete an ornament, the ornament goes into your consumables inventory, and then you hold down X or square or whatever to use that consumable, and then it will apply that to all armor sets, even if you have not collected them. And so the way that it works is, like, let's say that
for all the classes.
Correct. So you would be able to get all of those ornaments for that particular
Cool. See, I thought I had to do it on each class for the other stuff.
No, and all the progress is shared too. So, like, let's say you go in and you want to do your strike ones, because those are the ones I've been doing, and you need to do 25 heroic strikes, right? So if you do like 3 on your Titan and then you switch over and do 4 on your Hunter, like, that counter will show 7 instead of 3 or 4 for each class. So you can make progress on all the characters as long as for the faction rally that you're pledged to each faction, or that you're pledged to that faction on all the characters. So if you really want those ornaments, like, it'll be easier to obtain them if you pledge with multiple characters, but at the same time, like, it's, you know, it kind of, I like that it kind of makes it so that you can specialize a little bit more and make it easier on yourself to get those ornaments if you really go all out for one class or one faction.
And I think that we're going to be able to purchase certain armor items from the vendors if we don't have them this week.
All the armor pieces. Yeah, all the armor pieces, and I think 1 weapon. I'm not sure if the factions will have the 1 weapon as well, but
yeah, I think they had said the weapons would rotate.
Yes.
On some of the vendors, so maybe we can see that. Did you notice that there's a Dead Orbit ship in the background on one of these pictures?
There is, and there's sparrows too in the loot pool.
There is indeed. I think there might be a ghost as well.
I think there is,
if that was data mined. So that's cool.
That'll
give you something else. So that's like kind of like the old factions. You know, you could get some unique faction stuff. I was always a fan of that, chasing my New Monarchy faction ship for a long time.
And I loved it when they added the ghost shells for the factions. I went after those. Those were great.
Yeah, those were really cool too. So, but yeah, faction. I keep wanting to call them faction wars, but faction rally will be back next week. Still no word on the dawning. I'm wondering if PSX they're gonna announce something.
PSX is over, dude. They didn't announce it.
Is it over today?
It's over tonight.
It was up till tomorrow.
No, I think it's done. I could be wrong, but I thought I saw a tweet from PlayStation or from Sony. Yeah, Sony PlayStation
maybe
tonight
the week
saying
after
that it was
this
done.
reset, we'll see it. I would think it would drop like before or by Christmas.
I was thinking we get it the 19th, just because like if you think about like their release cadence, like I think it makes sense. So they haven't said yet, but that's my anticipation. I hope they said mid-December, and I don't think it's coming on Tuesday. Maybe you're listening to this and you're throwing snowballs at each other and laughing at us, but we'll wait and find out, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We know it's coming in some form or fashion. Maybe they'll wait till the new year. I don't know. Either way, we got plenty of other stuff to play around with until then.
Oh yeah, dude. There's so much stuff in this.
Then we've got a little bit of notes titled "The Balance of Power" from John Wisniewski. A couple of notable things that they had to say outside of the patch notes. He mentions that he says, I paraphrase, "We know about the Prometheus lens. It's not what we intended. The weapon shipped with the bug, which we intend to fix with Destiny Update 1.1.1. So if you hadn't heard, if you've been living in a cave this week, the new exotic Prometheus lens has a bit of a bug, at least in the Crucible, that just completely obliterates enemy players in a very, very short, I'd say it's probably about a half second.
It's really, really fast.
Yeah.
If you've played Crucible, you're aware of this.
I will say, the weapon requires a little bit of skill as a beam rifle if you're not up close.
It does,
like
and
if you're shooting at somebody far away.
Yeah, it has like a certain handling to it too. Like there's a certain one of the things I learned is like if you want the burn to apply, you have to kind of like there's a certain way to do it, and there's a certain way to know that once they get to below a certain health level, if you let go of the trigger, it will trigger the AoE and kill them. So like you can kind of like you gotta mess around with it some. Like when my first match in there, I was just getting nuked by everybody. And I was like, how do you even use this thing? I heard this was super OP and I can't figure it out. So like it definitely had a skill curve that you had to kind of like adjust to, but it was super fun. PvP this weekend was really great. Like we'll get into it a little bit more later, but the trials of the lens and laser tag in the Crucible was super fun.
So I think, and we can mention, it made the Crucible pretty quickly inaccessible if you didn't have the gun and you were playing with people who did. But I think they very brilliantly decided to lean into the problem, and they made sure that Xur sold this exotic this weekend, putting this destroyer of all Crucible activities in everybody's hand and said go nuts, which I think was the best thing they could have done.
Agreed.
Because I was going to stay way away from the Crucible unless I got it to drop.
Yeah, well, I was doing the same thing.
This won't be fun for me. Like,
I said the same thing.
Sure, it'll be fun. So everybody had it, and it was a laser light show in the Crucible this week, which I found really fun. I challenged myself, was like, let me play some games where I don't use this, and tried to use some different loadouts and was able to do okay. Like, kept positive KDA, and you just had to play differently. You had to be a little more nimble and make sure you only challenged when it was in your favor. But I'm interested to see how the Trials players felt, because I didn't touch Trials this week.
Yeah, so I did actually get some Trials in. I did a couple games. It was really fun. You kind of have to go in with the right mentality and just expect that it's going to be crazy and you're going to get lasered to death and it's going to be weird, but it was really fun. We had a good group of guys, and I managed to actually get the Trials auto rifle too, which was super awesome.
What kind of auto rifle is it?
It's kind of like faster firing, and it's got the perk Ambitious Assassin, so that when you get like in PvE, it's good for PvE. If you get like multiple kills with it and reload it, you can get the mag up to like, I think it's like 65.
It like overstacks the mag.
Yeah, that's what it does. So like I haven't really messed around with it too much. Like it feels real good. Like it has like some side to side recoil, but it doesn't really go up and down. If you're sighted in, it's almost straight dead level. Like it is really, really nice, stable. It's just not necessarily straight up and down, but it's nice.
I got a new pulse rifle called Autumn Wind.
I've heard that's really good.
It has that same perk, and it's a high rate of fire pulse, and it just feels like really good. If you get it, play with it, it's fun.
I've been trying to get it in the Crucible. I did all 3 of my Crucible milestones, and the third one I did, I was like, please, I don't want to wait till next week, but I guess I'll have to.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't really think to look into what the new stuff with Trials is. So it sounds like there's new weapons.
Yeah, so there's 4 or 6 of them. I don't remember. I don't play a lot of Trials, so I don't really know. But yeah, there's a bunch of new weapons, and then they did ornamentation basically on the armor. Which I think
is still get the old stuff, but then you can earn ornaments on the new stuff.
Correct. So I think that's a great. You can
earn ornaments. Period.
Yeah, I think that's a great solution. Like, because it frees up your vault space. Because you don't have to collect all the different sets. Like you can just, and you can swap them out on the fly. Like once you pick an ornament, like you don't have to leave it on there. And because it's unlocked for you, like in perpetuity, like once you have it and it's tied to your account, which is great.
Yeah. One thing that I realized with the new ornament system is it's basically like a new armor set, but it's built into the existing armor set. So you just get these permutations. You don't have to keep all the different ones. So I think moving forward, like it's a great system because they can add like different ornaments with different seasons if they wanted to, and they can give us all this different stuff. And you don't have to like pick and choose based on your space, and then you can just swap them out at will. So I think that is a really elegant solution to being able to introduce some variety into those armor sets. That really solves like a problem that I had in Destiny 1, which was like, I guess I got to pick like my favorite ones because I can't keep them all, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing it accomplishes as well that I hadn't really thought about is that you generally are going to end up with mods. And even though the mod system, like, I think all of us would love it if it was more robust, like what it does add for it already, like, is pretty decent. Like, it's a little bit of an extra bonus. Like, maybe you want kinetic counterbalance. Well, instead of having to find like 10 kinetic counterbalance mods to put in, your gear so that you can swap, those gear pieces out, you just have to find one mod. And then that will cover like all of the permutations and cosmetic differences. And so what it does is it makes it so you have less mods to hunt down and get. Which, and like I said, hopefully there will be some enhancement to that mod system. And they said they're working on it right now. But I like the fact that you don't have to get like a bazillion of the legendary ones. You just have to get one for that particular set, and then you can just change the aesthetic of it on the fly, which is great.
Yeah, I do like that. So, but that's how Prometheus Lens went down this week. Kind of a fun, you had to be there time in Destiny, like a lot of other happy accidents that have happened.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But overall, like, the weapon I think is really cool. It's definitely a unique and fun weapon to play with in PvE. Oh my gosh. That thing it literally changes the game for me in certain scenarios. Just because of like the damage you can put out and the fact that it reloads when you kill an enemy. Like, it's allowed me to do heroic public events that I could never get done.
Yeah.
And if you use it right, like, but I think that's its strength, is like mob control. Like, that's what it was made for.
It is going to be
as
a little bit
opposed to,
it's going to be a little
as
bit
opposed
nerfed,
to the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm hoping they don't change it too much in PvE, because I don't think it's overpowered. I think it's just a really niche weapon.
I think it does a little bit more damage. Like, I think it is an outlier right now, and I think it's going to be toned down a little bit because of how the damage calculation is happening, but I don't think it will be. I hope it's not too dramatic, because I agree with you. It's a really fun gun, and it has a niche. And I would love to see that developed. I agree.
Cool. So then John goes on to talk about their weapon changes and their philosophy about that. Essentially, that they're not trying to make a terribly disruptive update to the entire sandbox as far as how weapons handle. Even some things that they're aware of, they're outliers. They're just trying to put little course corrections on certain things to see how that does, which I like that more than, okay, blanket nerf to auto rifles, like, I don't think anything is terribly out of tune as far as the sandbox goes. I think there's things that could use some polishing and maybe some adjustments here and there, like they're doing, and I think they've already made some ground in this patch. So I think that's their kind of their modus operandi moving forward, is like, be really targeted, make little course corrections, and see how that goes, So moving on, they talk about how the feedback loop goes when there's feedback out in the wild, and how that goes through the process of getting to the studio and what they do with it. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely read it. It's things that we've talked a lot about before, so I don't want to like over talk into that whole conversation, but they are going to again be deploying some more changes, and specifically some quality life stuff in the update next week, 1.1.1. So we have that to look forward to. I can't wait to see those notes.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that's really nice is, I know you guys have talked about, like, Bungie has made a commitment to the community that that they're really going to endeavor to include us in the conversation more, to communicate more to us about their process of gaining information, gaining feedback, and responding to it, and what they're thinking internally. And these last 2 sections absolutely are that. Like, I think that we would be remiss not to compliment the fact that, like, Wisniewski wrote that post, and he basically, instead of it just being like, here's the patch notes, he said, here's, 5 paragraphs of, like, our approach, our philosophy, what we want to do, and our intention. Like, that is what the community had been asking for. And I love the fact that they took time out of their, work for Destiny 2 to really communicate well with the community and to give us that sense of, like, conversation. I think some people were, they were wanting them to talk about different things, but I think the fact that they are communicating to us, the fact that they are continuing that trend, and the fact that they are endeavoring to include sections in the weekly, in this week at Bungie, that are specifically dedicated to that communication, I think are great. Thank you. Thank you. Keep doing it, please. It's great. We love it.
I agree. I think they're owning what they said they want to do, and they're moving forward. They're taking steps forward and keeping that communication line open. They're telling us more behind the scenes of, okay, like, here's how this happens, and here's our intent here. And, even further down, they're talking about, here's things that we're looking at for next year. We don't have an exact solution to give you, but we'll be able to tell you when it's ready. Even as vague as that is, it gives us an idea of what to look forward to, of what they're working on and what their intentions are. And that does a lot, even for me as a player, to know, like, okay, like, I don't need to be hung up on this thing. I may not be happy about it, but they're working on it. And that's the most I can ask for, you know? And I think it needs to be said, like, I've stated in the past, my opinion when looking at big companies is, when you're not hearing anything, it's usually either because there's nothing to say or there's nothing good to say. And I think a lot of the time with Bungie, some of the time I think there's nothing to say, not because they don't care, but because it is a big company, and I think that sometimes it takes time for them to, okay, let's stop. Let's look at what we perceive is going on. Like, all right, how do we want to approach this? And how can we communicate that? And at what point can we communicate it? I think sometimes it takes time for them to figure out, okay, like, what can we do about this? And I've found that they've typically in the past been a company that doesn't want to say anything until they have something substantial. Yeah. I think and in some ways that can be good, but sometimes that's really, like, that's bit them in the butt really hard. And so I think that they're trying to take a altered approach to that. And we already kind of saw, like, it took them some time to pivot after Destiny 2 released, to kind of let things simmer and figure out, okay, well, like, these are the sets of feedback that we're getting, what direction do we want to go with that? They could have said, no, lean into what we're doing, or, do what they're doing. And they're saying, like, let's change direction on this and that. And so now that they've made a pivot, we have the opportunity to kind of see, like, what does that process look like? And if they can stay on this track, I think that they're going to do a lot for their community's sense of trust, over the long term, like, trusting that they have their intentions in the right place for what their players want, and that we're moving forward in the game,
Absolutely.
So, that all being said, over in the Destiny player support section, they detail some known issues. One of those is HDR on PlayStation. So they're having some trouble with that. Another one is the Eater of Worlds Prestige Raid Ornaments. Seems a couple of them, the details on those are incorrect. They detail that. And then they bring this up, trophies and achievements. So they say, we're aware that there's some Destiny 2 trophies and achievements that have become unavailable to players who have not purchased Curse of Osiris. We're committed to fixing this issue and are currently investigating a solution. Please stay tuned for more updates on this topic as progress is made. So what they're referring to is that when Curse of Osiris launched, you could no longer earn a certain achievement if you hadn't already, which is one that requires you to prestige either a Nightfall or the raid. Because of the new requirements with the new content, there's certain aspects of the game, such as prestige activities, that you can't complete unless you have Curse of Osiris. That creates kind of an issue if you didn't purchase that content, because obviously you can't get that trophy because you can't play that activity. They're saying that it's an issue, like, I don't think they're saying it's a bug per se, but they're saying we know this is a problem, at least. And they're working on a solution for that. What that could be, I don't know.
Which is interesting, because the same issue would have happened in Destiny 1, because when there was a trophy for completing the Nightfall, right? But the Nightfall was locked behind the Dark Below, the day the Dark Below launched. And so it's interesting to me because, like you said, it's not as though they're saying that this is unintentional. I think it is intentional in terms of saying, like, but I don't think that their intent is that people will be locked out of content that they feel like they've rightfully paid for. And so I think it's encouraging for them to say, we are investigating a solution. We want you to be able to access that achievement, and we want you to be able to unlock that achievement, and we're going to work out something, Whereas in Destiny 1, like, this just, it didn't become a community-centric issue, that there were activities that were locked behind that DLC, because that was the case for Destiny 1. But it didn't rise to be an issue. It has risen to the attention of many and to the ire of many. And so they're going to adjust it, which is, that's the best you can hope for, right?
Yeah, it's part of a bigger conversation that people are having about the fact that certain activities are no longer accessible in vanilla Destiny 2. We started talking about this a little in the show, and we're like, well, we probably need to just have this conversation on the podcast. But so there's a few things. Prestige level activities, so the Prestige Raid, the Prestige Nightfall, are not accessible if you don't have Curse of Osiris. Heroic Strikes are not available. That's kind of like a gray area to me. Like, on one hand, it seems like it's part of the expansion. On the other hand, it seems like it's a quality of life thing. So it seems like they landed on, well, this is expansion content with that one. And I'm trying to think of what else. The Nightfall, right? And then Trials.
They can do the Nightfall.
Can you do the Nightfall?
Yeah, because the Nightfall is only 270. They can't do the Prestige Nightfall. So the Prestige activities are the only ones that they're locked out of.
Trials, I think... Actually, I know you could not access Trials if you didn't have the expansion.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah,
but that's how it was for
a conversation.
That's how it's been for all the other expansions since Trials launched. So it's not that surprising.
Obviously, that kind of has to do with the fact that if you don't have the expansion, you can't play on certain maps, right? And new
it's
maps
not just that;
come
it's
up
also
in Trials.
It's also power level. So for instance, House of Wolves was when they originally launched Trials. Well, you couldn't play, even if you owned House of Wolves, like, you couldn't play Trials unless you had the Taken King. And likewise, once it got to Rise of Iron, you couldn't play Trials unless you had Rise of Iron.
Yeah.
So
that was brand new content. Made total sense to me then. Like, if you want to play the new mode, you got to buy the new content. And there's
the same mode.
There's one part of it. There's one part of it where we want to look at the history of how this is handled, and then there's another part of it where I think we need to look at the present how things are different in this game. Of course, so here's something I think they did right that ties into this, that they want to have in-game activities, no matter what, to remain playable and relevant as the power level rises in the game and as we get new content.
Yes.
That was something that people, as we got more and more content throughout Destiny 1, we would continually look back and say, like, I wish the vault, like, rose with us in power. We could still go back and get gear there and different, all the different things that we could play. And so I think one thing they've done right is they're bringing up stuff with us. So
yeah.
When
Agreed.
we want to go play Leviathan, it's giving us powerful gear. I think that's awesome. When we want to play Trials or the Nightfall, whatever these things are, they raise them to an appropriate level so that that content is still relevant for us. So it retains its value, right?
Yes, agreed.
I think that's a smart move in many different ways. I think that for me, my opinion is as looking at it from the perspective as purely for a consumer, is if there's certain things that I think that you can expect that if you buy the game and there's things that are accessible in the game when you buy it before new content comes out, I don't think it's fair to the consumer that you lose access to those things. I think that Bungie could have done it a different way, where you could still access things like Prestige when it was appropriate. Like if it's on a new strike, I can totally understand why you wouldn't be able to access that. But I think that power level shouldn't be something that you can't obtain. Like if the new power level, highest power level is 335, I don't think you should be gated that you can't rise. Maybe you have less opportunities to do so, obviously, because there's more content. But if the reason that you can't access the Prestige raid or the Prestige Nightfall or Heroic Strikes are just because of power level, I don't think it's a good enough excuse. Yeah, I think is my point. If you look at a point a lot of people are putting out there is like, PC players have had the game for 6 weeks, and now they can't play the Prestige Raid or the Prestige Nightfall after they've had the game for 6 whole weeks without buying an expansion. And I do think that sucks. I don't think it's fair to those players. Maybe they don't want to buy the expansion. Maybe some people can't afford to buy that expansion. I don't know. It's completely up to them as players to what their situation is. Joe, I know you feel differently about this. So what do you think about this situation?
So I think that a lot of this is really a question of what kind of a game Destiny is. And my personal thought is that what Destiny is at its core is an evolving and live experience. And the game is at its best when it is evolving and live. And I think that, like you mentioned, the raids being left behind was a severe pain point for the community for years. I mean, this is something that was like at the literal top of the Bungie please list on Reddit for years. For years. And it was, like you mentioned, it was something that was really hard for people to stomach, that they couldn't go back to those activities and have it be challenging like it was before, even just for the experience of it. I remember there were people, we go back and do Vault, and you didn't even have to really tell the new people what the mechanics were. It was just like, you just go over here, stand here, and shoot this guy. And I hate that was something that we had to leave behind, and I like the fact that they're pushing that stuff forward. But the cost of that is that essentially if you want the game to feel like it's evolving and moving forward, you have to leave people behind that are not a part of that. And I think that part of that is just because the type of game that Destiny is one that is best evolving. And so if you got a game like World of Warcraft, like, I don't think that you would expect that you could, pull it off the shelf 10 years later and have it be the same game. It's not. And I think in the same way, like, Destiny is not the same game that it was when you bought it. And Destiny 2 is not the same game as it was when you bought it. And I think we need to allow that to move forward. One of the other things I think that is key is, how much time investment do you have to get to before you could legitimately do the prestige activities? I think the prestige activities have been completed by something like 5% of all players. And that time investment is somewhere in the realm of like 100 to 150 hours. Like a week ago, that was the level that you had to be at to even get to the point that you could reasonably attempt it, much less complete it. Now, the other thing is you need friends that are also going to be at that same position. Now, when you evaluate all that, like, part of me says, if we're going to move this game forward, the only people that are going to be affected are this 5% of the player base that have invested more than 100, 150 hours. I think if you're that kind of player, it makes sense to expect that you would invest in the game further. And so at that point, like, I think that one of the keys to ask here is, like, who is the player that's actually affected by this? Who is the player that was running Prestige Nightfalls and Prestige Raids for the last 2 weeks that is now unable to access the content because they didn't buy the expansion? And did they spend, if they spent a couple hundred hours in the game, 200-300 hours in the game to get to that level, to get to that point, and to be able to perform those activities with a team, why would they not purchase the content? And so I think for me, one of the other questions is, like, who does this actually impact? I think that we can have a theoretical conversation about, like, content being restricted or pulled away from people who purchased it. But I think one of the better questions is, like, who does this actually impact? And is that player entitled to that content if they came late to the party? If they bought Destiny for 35% off and 50% off, should they have all the same content for a growing game? And I think the answer is that, like, it benefits more players to move the content forward and leave the players behind who either have not invested enough to even care to try that activity, or who have invested enough to know that they love the game and honestly should be supporting the development ongoing of the game and not just reaping the benefits of being able to jump in later and receive all of the updates for free. Especially in a game like Destiny, where there is no subscription fee and where there's no ongoing payment other than that expansion. So those are some of the reasons why I think that it's very reasonable and why it's actually the best choice for a game like Destiny.
My question to that is, though, why does it have to be gated? It's an intentional choice for Bungie to say, okay, we're gating these specific activities that now require Curse of Osiris. Why does it have to be that way when it could simply be, okay, you have to be at this power level to obtain that, and that's what it is? And if it's more difficult to reach that power level in the game with just what you have, so be it. But when they intentionally gate it to require more content, it comes across to me to be more motivated in kind of putting a stranglehold on the player that, okay, well, if you want to play this now, you're going to have to pony up the extra $20. But you had that before December 6th. You just didn't play it in time. And so if I look at, okay, a kid gets this Destiny 2 for Christmas, and you got to take into account that there's, like, a lot of players like this that exists. We have to acknowledge the fact that there is a huge percentage of players that play this game completely different from you and I. Mm-hmm. And especially, like, with younger people in the way that parents typically decide, like, where the gaming budget goes, or they may only get, like, a few games a year. So if the parent goes and they're like, the kid, I want Destiny 2, they get it for Christmas, they didn't get it when it released, and they're playing through the game, and maybe that's a game that they expect, like, they can play this game all year. And they get, like, maybe it takes them 2 months, 3 months, and they want to play something Prestige, or they want to play Heroic Strikes. It's not accessible for them there, whereas it was before. And I understand when you're looking at it as, like, this is the toughest content. Maybe these players, they can't or maybe never will go and complete it. It's still content that would have belonged to them before, but doesn't now. And I don't see it as, like, this is a huge dramatic, like big deal, like stop the presses, Bungie's evil. I just see it as a choice that they made that I think that they could have done a lot better and done differently. That didn't remove content from people, but they decided to do that intentionally. And I don't think it's fair to a certain number of players. I'm playing on PC, and I haven't bought the expansions yet. And I may have wanted to do that stuff, and I might not buy the expansions on PC for a while because I still haven't finished the other content. But there's certain things I'm not going to be able to play until I do pony up that money. It's going to affect what I'm doing. So now I got to go buy the expansions so I can play everything that I want. So I think that there's a lot of different scenarios, and just looking at it as, well, it's only a percentage. I don't think that just because it's a statistical outlier that it makes it okay. Like, this isn't a situation where just because it affects few that they had to do it that way. It's not like this was the only way forward. That's my point. And I think they could have made their choices differently, and I don't think it's okay just because they did it in Destiny 1 that they can do it now. That was then. They can make different decisions, and people were upset about that then. It just got, eventually kind of dissuaded itself, and those people probably went away that had a big problem with it, or they ponied up the money and they dealt with it because they wanted to play the game, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a problem for me. I don't think it's a fair way of doing business. And I think that I would like them to do this differently.
Yeah. And I think that kind of to answer I think that you make good points. I think that to answer the points, the first is, I only bring up the number of players affected to just say the minuscule amount of content that's locked out will not affect the vast majority of people. For those for whom it impacts, I would say that they need to understand the type of game that they're buying into, and that's not hopefully it's not taken as an elitist or, whatever comment, but it's essentially point. Saying that, like, so when I bought Zelda,
a live
right?
Game.
Yeah, I bought Zelda Breath of the Wild, right? That game's amazing. It's my favorite single player game of all time. And I know that when I dust off my Wii U in 10 years to show my kids, this amazing game, it will be the same game because of the type of game that it is. I'm going to be able to dust off Horizon Zero Dawn. And, when my kids are old enough to say, check this game out. It's awesome. I played it a long time ago, right? I'm going to be able to do that for Mario. I'm going to be able to do that for all these different games. But the thing is that, like, Destiny's not that kind of game. Like, you can't even do that with Destiny 1 now. You can't do that with World of Warcraft.
Right.
You can't do that with League of Legends. You can't do that with Dota. You can't do that with PUBG. There are certain eras that exist because it is a live game. You can't do that with The Division. And so I think that, like, part of it is, I think that Bungie has done an exceptionally good job at only impacting the smallest fraction of players, and those players that are that invested that they would even put the time in to get there are exactly the type of players that should be paying more, honestly, I think.
Well, and I think that's their bet.
Yeah.
I think that is probably their justification, not putting a negative connotation on that. Like, I think that's probably their thought process is.
Yeah. It's going to affect a negligent number of players. These are the most
challenging things. The players who play this, they're along for the ride. I
think it benefits everybody to have an end game that's moving forward. I think it is the best experience for the vast majority of invested players.
I don't want these kinds of problems to diminish what they're trying to do in keeping things relevant for everybody and keeping that content useful. I think what it does is it really highlights a tough position that they're in with the type of game that they have in the space that it is. That, and we've talked about this for years in Destiny 1, the fact that it's a game that we expect to carry forward, but we don't pay a subscription for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, this is not the episode to like totally unpack this, but when we think about like microtransaction loot boxes, the Eververse, like expansions, like all the things that go into like how Destiny 2 is monetized, I think examples like this present how fine of a line they have to walk with trying to achieve what they are, which is like always having the experience stay relevant for the player, but also like it has to carry forward, like things have to change, you have to like raise power levels, and you have to produce new content, and not all players can get it, because if you don't pay for it, you know, you ultimately, like, there's certain things that they can do for free, like quality life stuff that's kind of expected, and then there's certain things that are like, this is new content that we have to charge for. And it, for me, it presents an even greater case if there's any game that needs to have some kind of subscription fee, it would be Destiny 2. Mm-hmm. Is that possible? Is it probable? I really don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a reason why I would want that to happen. You know, it's just another tick in the box for me that says, like, if that reality was possible, it would be so much better of a game, you know?
Yeah. And I think that even in that, I think that they've created something, and I think the interesting thing here, even just with, just kind of summarize a lot of the frustrations. Well, what about the little guy, right? What about the guy who can't afford it? What about the guy who? Yeah. I think that if anything, Destiny has respected that player more than any other game in its genre. And if you don't have the $15 to pay for your month of World of Warcraft, you can't play it at all. We're not even talking about, like, I can't even go back and play what I would usually do. I can't even go back to the old raids I used to, like, you don't have that money for the subscription, you're out. When it comes to a lot of the other games in Destiny's same space, those DLC and those microtransactions are more meaningful. They impact gameplay. They are necessary. Mm-hmm. And with Destiny, like, they've really managed to find a way that they can treat every player with respect. And I really do believe they do. And give every player a great experience for whatever level they're able to pay. And I think that they also incentivize that if you can pay for that little bit more and support their development, you're going to get some awesome stuff. So I think it's good, but we could go around like a million times. Go ahead and make a final statement on it, and then we'll kind of move on.
My last comment on that was just that, by doing that, it allows them to put the game in the hands of people that wouldn't ever pay a monthly fee, right?
I'm one of those players. So, I'm 100% converted from one of those players. I would pay a monthly fee for Destiny. If you had told me that Destiny had a monthly fee 3.5 years ago, I would have not bought the game. 100%.
Exactly. And then there's, we bring up this example, like, there's kids, there's young people, there's people that don't have a big gaming budget. Like, if they moved to that type of system, they'll never sell to those players.
Correct.
Which, that's a big deal as a business. Like, where to produce a game of this caliber, like, there's certain sales expectations that have to happen. Like, that's just the reality. So it's accessible. So all in all, it's a tough nut to crack, I think, in this day and age.
Yeah.
Like, how do they be a successful studio, a successful business? How do they, provide the caliber of game that we want, and have the finances to do it? It's all very interesting. It's all a very fine line that they've got to walk. So
yeah.
Anyways, we'll move on from this.
Yeah, seriously.
We could talk about this for quite a while.
Yeah. So basically, that ends this week at Bungie. They had some movies of the week and whatnot. Anything there that you thought stood out?
I thought this sculpt of Callus was really cool. Mm-hmm. I always admire any artist that has this level of, just mastery of their craft. So I would check that video out. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
But that's it.
Cool.
But that's it. So, patch notes, we're going to talk about this for just a few minutes because they're super long. There's so many small little things, but what we wanted to do was grab some of the things that we thought had the biggest impact and talk about those for a couple minutes, so we can mostly talk about the rest of the game that we got to play this week. So what are some of these big changes that we made with this update?
All right, so I'll just go through my biggest hit list was the sandbox changes to grenades and supers. They had the biggest impact on the game for me. In PvE specifically, I feel powerful, and I think that that's something that I didn't sense was missing. Like, I felt like the combat was off a little bit. It just didn't feel the same as Destiny 1. Not that it was bad. It just wasn't the same. And I think that this reinvigorates my feeling that I am a powerful guardian because my grenades are so much stronger than they were. I love that they toned down pulses a little bit, pulse grenades, and then they brought all the other grenades back up on par with that grenade in its reduced state and the other popular ones like Vortex and Void Wall. I love that they made this change, and it has really enhanced the experience for me as I've tried out these different subclasses. I am running almost a completely different set of subclasses as my main subclass for each overarching class. I'm running Voidlock with the Chaos Tree, and those scatter grenades are unbelievable. They are so strong. It's like you have nothing manacles all the time. It's great. And I'm running Voidlock. I'm running Sunbreaker with the Sunspot build, and I'm running Gunslinger. And it just, those abilities being stronger and more impactful to gameplay, that has really defined this balance update for me. The guns didn't get very much addressed, but I think it was a good change. Like they took some outliers down a little bit, and they brought a couple like outliers on the bottom end up a little bit. But it was, for me, it's all about supers and grenades. Like, that's what really has made this update feel so good for me.
I really liked the changes with super damage being increased to bosses.
Absolutely.
Because, especially like playing the new heroic strikes a lot this week, it really made you feel, like you said, made you feel powerful, and it gave you some better strategic options, like when to use supers and how to use them when you're, at certain phases of the boss. It just made it feel more impactful. And so when I, was able to, okay, I got my super, I'm going to save it for, this last, like, third of the health for the boss, and then I'm going to melt him with my Stormcaller. And it did a really, huge chunk of damage. So it, like you said, it made the game feel, just more fun, because when you make choices, they have a big impact with those abilities. So I think these were good changes.
Yeah. I loved it. I loved all the grenade upgrades. Like, it's been super great. What subclass are you favoring most with these changes?
So I've played mostly on my Warlock this week. I started the story on my Titan. And usually for PvE, I like to play the Void Titan, the Sentinel, because it's just the newest to me, and so I like to play around with his abilities, which have been great. But mostly playing on Warlock this week. I've tried them all. Like, I enjoyed Voidlock more. Like, Voidwalker was a bit more fun because of what you could do with your abilities. Just felt a little more powerful. Stormcaller, like, just feels really great in PvE because of the utility, of a roaming super and being able to clear ads. So I played that a lot. Dawnblade still, is fun to play with. I'm still not too keen on the bottom tree.
Yeah.
Just because of how it makes you so floofy. Like, the floofiest of floof for Warlocks is the bottom tree. Like, if you can play it right, it's really cool, but I can't play it right. So I stick to that top tree. But any of them that I've used, especially when dealing with bosses, and all the grenades just feel really good. But I think that Stormcaller is like the most useful for in-game activities I've found. They all have their own niche, like if you want to play certain ways, especially like playing Devour Warlock, like that bottom tree for Warlock, you can do some really cool stuff.
Yeah. Have you messed around with the Cataclysm? I mean, the Chaos Tree that much? Because that is my jam. I cannot get off of that thing. It's so much fun.
I need to.
Yeah.
I've since Destiny 2's come out, I've really focused trying to play the new classes as much as I can, because it kind of just gives me like a newer experience, so to speak. Like, I have more fun with it because I'm figuring out the new things to do, even though all the classes are reworked. So I focus the most on like Dawnblade and Sentinel and Arcstrider, and I think over time, like, I'll probably play around more with like other attunements for classes I haven't played as much, things like that.
Yeah.
I think I've been starting
to mess
so
around.
you get more hours into the game, and you like to experiment more than I do. Like,
it's true.
I usually find I'm like, let me find this one way I like to do things, and I'll just like do that for a long time, like weeks, because I just find it fun. I won't mix it up until I'm like, okay, I'm kind of getting bored with this. Let me go deliberately, like, let me go break the mold, try something different, and then I'll get stuck on something else for a while,
Yeah, absolutely.
They made some other changes to, like, I noticed Sunbreaker and Gunslinger that I think are notable.
Absolutely. Those classes feel amazing right now.
Yeah. I haven't tried either of those yet. I need to. I probably will over the next couple weeks as I get all my characters through the story. But they make those, I think, feel a bit more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, like, my ordering of hunter classes that I liked, like, in order was like Night Stalker was my favorite, then Arcstrider, then Golden Gun, and it's literally flipped. Arcstrider might be my favorite, but it's probably Golden Gun is my favorite now. They basically increased the duration of your Golden Gun super so that it's the same on both trees. I'm using the 6-shooter now because the 6-shooter is super fun. You got the increased boss damage with your 6-shooter. I found out this week that fires in full auto, like with the last word, he just pounds on that hammer. It's the same kind of animation. And then in addition, you get the exploding knife, which I love. And then you also get Chain of Woe, which is a stackable bonus where if you get a precision kill, it will give you 10 seconds of increased reload speed, and it stacks up to 3 times. And that stack, once you get that 3 stack, it is insane, which makes it like really good. And it does it for not just you, but everybody in your fire team. And so it's a really amazing bonus. And so when you begin to like put all of those boosts together, like, I've found that class has become incredibly satisfying. And the grenade has been, basically all of the grenades for that class got buffed, except for the one with the trip mine. So, it was boosted as well. So all of the grenades got boosted on that subclass, and I think that's why I'm so like cool on the Night Stalker, because none of the grenades got a boost. So like, I don't feel as powerful. Like, I already felt good and powerful on that subclass, and I just don't feel like it kept up. But maybe it's just because like I already knew the utility of that one, and now I'm seeing the other classes emerge as like powerful like options, and that's very compelling to me.
Yeah, Shadow Shot, I think, has its greatest strength in Destiny 2. It's just pure ad control and orb generation, which is what it always did well in Destiny 1.
Yeah.
But it's more focused on that, I feel, in Destiny 2, as it being kind of a niche. And Gunslinger, I think, definitely needed some work, so I'm glad to hear that it feels a lot better. We had a kind of a funny moment. We were playing a heroic strike last night, and we were playing, I always forget the name of the strike, but it's the big disappearing vandal at the end, the really annoying guy that disappears. So we're playing him, and he had about close to a third of his health left, and he appeared, and both me and my friend turn around, and the guy, the blueberry we were playing with, just literally drops him in one shot, and we could not figure out how. And so I clipped it. I was like, gotta go back and figure out, because what is this guy running? And I could have sworn he was like Arcstrider, but turns out no, he just had Celestial Nighthawk on. And with that boost to supers, one shot, he was out. and it was just that quick. I mean, he popped it and dropped him in like a second, and it was just so funny how quick it happened. And it was very effective.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, I love that kind of stuff. Like, I haven't really messed around with the side of the tree that you would use Nighthawk with, the one that gives you the precision damage on your golden gun. I've just been using the 6-shooter, and like I'm having trouble getting off of it because that reload bonus is so good. It's like having Outlaw on every gun, and it's for you and your fire team. Like the 6 shots, because of the boosted damage, like it doesn't feel like you're losing a lot, and you don't have to like panic to get all your shots out because it's the same duration. So
you get more time. I think that was a big complaint for a lot of people, is how short of a time you had to use those 6 shots was really tough to justify, using that. So
and just for me as well, like I'm a big fan of stuff that has like high utility. So like the Nighthawk is like a very specific application. Like if there's a big thing over there, you can murder it or take out like a giant chunk of its health. Like you'll kill one thing, but you will kill it. Like it will be very, very dead. Whereas like the 6-shooter, like it now can function. It's not as good, not even close, as a Nighthawk thing, but you can put a hurt on most big things, right?
Still have some utility.
Yeah, and the other thing is though, if you have the Nighthawk, you can't gun down 6 ads that are like mid-tier ads. But you can if you've got the other tree. And so I like the flexibility that it offers, and I'm willing to forego some of the like insane burst damage, in order to like have a super that I feel comfortable like popping consistently and continuously in that moment that I need it, to do like lots of different things. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm honestly gravitating to like all of the subclasses that I am, like Voidlock, with the Chaos Tree, the Sunbreaker with the Sunspots, and the Gunslinger. Like all of them have like insanely good utility to accomplish like a vast number of things. And like, it's not as specialized, but I'm having just a blast exploring that and like really feeling like those things are strong and like have a lot of utility and a lot of skill and mastery potential.
Yeah, one change that's also notable with Titans that I've seen a lot of ire from is from the notes, I quote, decrease the distance traveled in the air with the shoulder charge ability when it is executed without a target. So I played around with this, and I had been playing a lot of Striker Titan, and I really liked this ability because it does make you feel fast and gives you the ability to kind of push forward a certain direction or change directions, which is a lot of fun with a Titan. Like that's always been a ton of fun. Destiny 1, Destiny 2, you're not quite as fast because you can't do the Titan skating, but the shoulder charge thing has always been really leaned on as a movement ability, especially in the Crucible, to be able to just kind of get the drop or, move quick or change direction quickly once you've got that speed built up. And basically what they're doing here is kind of reducing that utility as far as like just using it as a pure movement bonus, and kind of reining it in to be more specific towards just your enemies. So if it seems if you're trying to actually hit a target, you're gonna get the distance that you normally would, but if you're just kind of flying around in midair, it knocks, I'd say, probably about like 2 feet, maybe 3 off the actual distance. Like I was kind of jumping around on platforms trying to see, like, you feel slower if you're just charging in midair. You can still change direction with it, so it's got some utility there.
Yeah.
But you're just not getting like the speed and the just the flying through the air that you kind of wanted before. And some people are unhappy about it. Because Destiny is like a bit slower game than Destiny 1 was to begin with, so people were kind of upset that they lost this, and I see why. Like, for me, it was fun. It kind of takes a little bit of the fun out of it, but I get what they're trying to do, is to keep it a very specific skill that you're using just to kill stuff, not to jump around, bounce around. But it does change how the game plays, and it's notable. People should be aware that that's happening.
Yeah.
So they can kind of adjust.
Yeah, I definitely moved away from it, and that's where, like you just mentioned, you got to adapt. Like, the new season, new thing, they might change it later. Right now, there's lots of amazing and compelling options that are not that do different things. So try some different stuff out, see if you like something a little bit better. Maybe you find that you're really good at shoulder charging and closing that distance using something like the stand-asides or like some different tactic, that you were able to make it work. Like, awesome, go for it, But like for me, I moved away from shoulder charge pretty quickly into D2 because it didn't do what it did in D1. And so I was like, I got to find something different to do. And I don't run the shoulder charge tree on any of my Titan subclasses anymore. And especially with this patch, it's really made them much more fun to run without and have other utilities. So it's good.
Yeah. A couple other notable things, which I noticed pretty quick in Crucible matches. There's an increase for drops of rare legendary items as well as more XP. I thought this was great. Like, I was getting a whole bunch of stuff dropping for me after matches, like 1 or 2 blues, 1 or 2 legendaries every game, which was great because sometimes you invest, or at least feels like you invest more time into those activities. So I was getting a bunch of stuff, and I think that it needed a little bit more rewarding system. So this was a step in the right direction. It'll definitely make me feel a little bit better about my time spent in the Crucible as far as what I'm getting out of it. So that was pretty cool. And then we talked a little bit about for a minute about newer gen, or whatever gen you want to call it, systems, Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. But they did push out the 4K and HDR assets for those systems. I was talking a little bit with one of my friends this week because he had just recently got an Xbox One X and a 4K TV, and he was like, guys, this looks so amazing. And I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure they didn't even put out the assets yet, but I hadn't read the full patch notes because they were so long. And we went back and looked, and sure enough, they did push those out, and he said the game looks fantastic in 4K with HDR. I wish that there was some way I could see it, but I can't. But I get a little hint of it when I play on PC because everything does look a lot prettier on PC, but he definitely got me thinking hard about, man, I'd really like to move to 4K to see what this game looks like. One thing he did notice is that he has not dropped frames at all since he started playing on his Xbox One X, which is something that I had suspected would be the case. So the game does run smoother. He said he notices like a lot less hitches. He doesn't notice like loading spots that he used to notice where you'd see kind of a hitch or a stutter. Things are just like really smooth, even though it's a locked 30. He said he really hasn't been able to discern it drop below 30 ever. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
something
awesome
to take note in. It definitely makes me want that Xbox One X more. I'm definitely jonesing, so that's going to go down on the list for next year.
Nice.
Yeah,
Switch is on my list for next year.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get yourself a Switch first. I know that you're kind of locked in as far as what you're going to allow yourself to buy, so.
Yeah.
I'm already getting heat from my wife about everything I bought this year, so after I'm getting the Switch, it's going to be a while before I get anything new. But I think that's some of the major stuff that we pulled out of the patch notes. They're really long. It's a lot of little things, but I would certainly take the time to sit down and read through them and notice all the little quality of life stuff that they've changed, fixes to, bugs and adjustments to weapons in the sandbox. There's a lot to take in. Definitely go check it out. You can find it on their website. If you just go to the Bungie.net, you'll see on the front page news, and you can click and find that Destiny 2 update 1.1.0, I believe.
Yeah, because 1.1.1 I think is
next week.
This week if you're listening to
this coming reset. Yeah,
which will have extra stuff, new fun things,
even more stuff.
Yeah,
so Well, hopefully that list will be shorter that we can talk about next week.
I don't know that it will, but it might be a little bit shorter.
We'll find out. Either way, I've never seen 2 back-to-back patches that were going to be this big, so it'll be quite a couple weeks, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Let's talk about how was your reset, Joe? Curse of Osiris.
Incredible. It was not cursed at all. Turns out that was a lie. It was just superb. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, I can't say too many. I can't say enough good things about it. I had so much fun. It was wonderful. It was amazing. We're gonna go point by point through this, and I'm just gonna have only glowing, wonderful things to say about this expansion because I was delighted, I was surprised, I was amazed, and I had a blast. It was
There are definitely
amazing.
moments of delight and surprise.
There were so many, and as we go through point by point, I will tell you all of them. Well, not really.
All right.
I'll tell you a few.
Well,
They're
let's
wonderful.
start off with the story, logically. In the campaign,
Yeah.
I guess we could lump into that. So, what are your initial thoughts?
Number one, it was way longer than I was thinking it was going to be. If we think historically of a DLC in the mid-year, we're talking like between 3 and 5 story missions. This had 8.
Right.
This was about double the size that I was expecting it to be. Additionally, this only is 1 mission short of the Taken King. If you look at the campaign, which is, I still think is the best they've ever done. I think this story was focused. I think the story was well written. I think it was interesting. There are some interesting bits of lore. And like, so we talk about the idea of like wanting grimoire and lore in the game. Like, there are a bunch of really weird, interesting lore bits that are found in like the strikes and in the story missions that aren't even like the scannables, but are just like, you know how when you play through it, you get different lines of dialogue. Like one of the ones I heard when I was playing, I think it was Garden World, earlier tonight. And the ghost basically said, you know, they were talking about how he wasn't there the first time that you ran this with Segura, right? Mm-hmm. And,
So you were playing this, like, the strike version?
Yeah, I was doing the strike version, and like,
okay.
The ghost said something to the effect of like, it was really weird. I was asleep, and I saw the traveler, and he was small, and like something else about like what he would look like, and it was like this really weird, like offhanded thing, and like I felt like the lore and the like storytelling was woven together in a really interesting way, and I felt like both in terms of like the adventures, in terms of like, and just the art of the entire thing was just unbelievable. They really took me to Mercury in a special way. I did not think I would like it as much as I did. I didn't think it would be as interesting as it was to me. And I feel like there are a lot of these small little throwaway lines. There are these, you know, these grimoire entries that are now on gear pieces that we're going to find and that are just going to provide a lot of new information, a lot of really interesting and cryptic information, which is what I think a lot of that lore community really likes, because then you can really discuss it and break it apart and try to understand what it means. And I think that like that small, like throwaway line is what it seemed like in a Garden World. Was like, I didn't think about that. I don't remember that. Like, when did he say that? You know? And there are these, like, I loved the story. I thought it was great. I thought it was focused. If there was any criticism I would level at the original, Destiny storyline, it's that it didn't have a very good boss battle in Gaul at the end, and that it was, very disjointed, it felt like, because you were doing all the different Vanguard things and they all had their own reasons for being gone. Whereas this one was like extremely focused, had a phenomenal boss fight at the end, and it was long. And that's what I really wanted in my campaign. Like it did everything I wanted. It checked all the boxes. And I think it's even provided like additional content to understand about the world, after the fact, both through adventures and through 2 of the missions being strikes, which was like, I thought just a brilliant move, to bring those forward that way. So what did you think about it? So
I will temper my whole conversation about Curse of Osiris with, number one, my expectations and my desire for this expansion. They were super high. Like, regardless of any criticism I've leveled at Destiny 2 or anything before that or after that, like, my hope and expectation for this DLC in many different facets were really high. One, because of the character they used. So Osiris is involved in a ton of lore. It's, like the marketing said, like he's the most infamous guardian. And so my expectations for the story, my hope and desire for like answers about like who Osiris is and what he's been doing and what the story would be like, all those were super high. And so that all being said, some of the ways that they told the story let me down because of my expectations. Some of that is personal. Some of that is based on just what we've all been through the Destiny experience, right? So like there's, reading all the grimoire and learning about the story and the universe and the world. Also, my expectations of the campaign were partially based on what the Destiny 2 vanilla campaign was, which I felt overall, like I've played through a whole bunch of different times now. I feel really good about the Destiny 2 campaign. I think there's ways that, it was wide, and then there's ways that it was narrow. And, I think like anything, like it can always be improved. There's always different tick marks that it could hit for different players. But I found the Destiny 2 campaign to be really enjoyable and very polished. And so I hoped for more of that from Curse of Osiris. I think that, like you said, it was the scope was narrow in a way. Like it was very straightforward. It didn't put you too many different narrative directions. And I think that, in my opinion, is to its detriment. I think that you mentioned like it hit a lot of tick marks, and it did hit a lot, like they checked a lot of boxes off. I think part of my disappointment with the story is that they didn't take any chances. I found the dialogue to be shallower than what I wanted at times. I mean, the few times that we're talking with Osiris, like in person, the conversations were very surface level. Like, especially at the end, like the epilogue, like he's talking with your mentor, if you're a warlock, like Ikora is my favorite character because she's the warlock vanguard. So, one of your favorite characters talking to the most legendary guardian in history, and they're just kind of like, sup, cool, how you doing? Okay, I'm out, peace. Like, it was very like surface level, and you're expecting a big moment, like for them to reconcile, and they kind of do, but they kind of don't. You're expecting for Osiris to like maybe drop a bomb on you or something and say like, I'm gonna go do this, or like to turn a corner. Instead, the character doesn't change at all. Like, they talk about in the story how he was egotistic, how the city and the Vanguard and everybody wasn't ready for what he tried to help them see, and they exiled him. And they talk about how he's changed, and they talk about how Ikora's changed. In the end, the status quo remains. Like, he goes back to the Infinite Forest, for whatever reasons. He's saying, like, my work isn't done or whatever, but you don't see any change outside of him, like, acknowledging Ikora as a peer. It all just seems very surface level, and there's nothing meaningful that changes, and that's part of what has always been my complaint with Destiny's storylines is they set the stage as if the stakes are high, but the stakes are really never that high. Like, you never see true consequence. And they changed that some in Destiny 2 because they were able to. Like, they shook the foundations of the tower, like they broke it down and put you on a whole different path that you would never see coming, and they blew up the city, and like they made some spectacular changes to what you knew as the status quo. but I feel like they sometimes fail to do that in their shorter storylines like this. And I think that I just wanted something more epic, something a little bit more broad, out of the fact that we were going to meet this legendary guardian and we were going to explore Mercury for the first time. And like, it was a fun journey. It was a fun romp, but in the end, that's all it felt like to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that you mentioned, I think that part of it is, I think part of our differences of opinion on this really stem from what you kind of mentioned before, our expectations. I think that one of the things that I do expect from Destiny is like, it's not drama. Like it's totally popcorn action movie theater. Like, and I'm fine with that. Like, 'cause as long as I get to shoot some aliens and it's like marginally interesting, like that's, I love it. And like, I liked the fact that they moved a lot of like the lore and whatnot, like into the strikes and into the adventures, because I feel like those are the moments and the opportunities to really like learn about those things. And I think that you're right in that, like, if you went in expecting it to be about Osiris, it wasn't. It was totally about Ikora. It was about Ikora. Yeah. It was not about Osiris. And I think that played to my enjoyment of it, because I love my expectations being subverted when it comes to storylines. I love it when I'm expecting the story to go in a certain direction and it doesn't. And I feel like for me, that's exactly what happened with this storyline. Like, I was expecting it to be about Osiris, and I don't really care that much about Osiris. I was never like a huge Trials player, and I always thought that like some of that stuff was overblown in terms of people's like intense focus on him. And so for me, like, when it shifted and pivoted and it was really about Ikora, you know, and you mentioned the fact that like nothing really meaningful changes. Like, the meaningful change is that Ikora starts off the campaign and she's questioning herself. Like, she's thinking about like how this development impacts her. And she's remembering like the person that she was when Osiris was around. And she's even like timid. She's like, don't tell the other vanguards. Like, what changes the most is her. Like, and Osiris like recognizes that at the end. And like, I feel like she walks with like, you know, a more confident step at the end of that campaign, like with a greater sense of purpose and a greater sense of like who she is. And I felt like that story was very meaningful to me because I wasn't expecting it. And I liked that pivot. And so I agree with you. Like, it totally wasn't about Osiris, and I can understand people being disappointed that wasn't delved into more, because he really is not a very utilized character. But I liked the pivot, and I liked the fact that like I went in expecting one thing and it was different. And I appreciated the story that they did tell. Even though it wasn't the story that I thought we were going to get. And it wasn't as, like you mentioned, it wasn't as like broad, but I liked the focus because I was kind of expecting it to be more narrow simply because of the time, you know, and I felt like it was longer than I thought it was, you know, it gave me more than I was expecting. So I think that expectations do play like a very key role, and I can definitely understand why you didn't like it as much and why you preferred the base Destiny storyline. I actually preferred the campaign in Curse of Osiris, like, to the campaign of D2. I did. I felt like it was a stronger, more focused, like more interesting character wise. Like, I could really get a sense of who these characters were and what they were doing, specifically referring to Ikora and Sagira.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was, you know, it has its merits. Like, there were cool characters and character development. Sagira, I think everybody really liked.
Oh, she was great.
You know, Osiris is kind of there in a punctuated way, like he serves his role at certain parts. I thought the mission where you are meeting his, I forget the word they use, but kind of his copies.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called, but...
Yeah, he's talking with you, and then he brings you, spoilers, he brings you to past Mercury. Like, that was a big wow moment for everybody, I'm sure, because it's beautiful, you know. I mean, the little landscape and the skybox was amazing. You see the Traveler in the background. Like, that was a cool moment I didn't expect. And he's talking with you about that and, you know, what he's been doing and what he finds happen through all these different simulations. That, you know, that was a cool mission, and they kind of built on his character there. So yeah, like you said, expectations play a lot into it. There were still great moments through the story.
It was still good. At the very least, like, it was good. And I think that everybody enjoyed it at different levels, but like, I don't think that your like the things that cause you to enjoy it less are not valid. Like, I think that there's a lot of players that resonate with what you're saying in terms of why it didn't fulfill what they were hoping for. I think for me, it hit that sweet spot for me. It was exactly what I want from a Destiny story. But I know that like there's a lot of people that want other things from stories as well. And hopefully future expansions will be able to deliver kind of a mixed experience, something a little bit closer to what you're hoping for in the next content update.
Yeah, ultimately, I think my take is that I'm finding that they are playing it safe in some ways that I wish that they would push the boundaries and, you know, step outside of what we would expect, both in the story development, but also in some ways in like design choices. You know, for instance, the final mission, which you said you really liked, it's very, very accessible, but as a boss fight, it's comically easy. Like you literally are said, stand here, now jump here. Now, here, I'll teleport you to where you can take the perfect shot at the boss. And there's not any choices to be made in that fight and how to do it. And there's very little difficulty as long as you can follow instructions. And I find that to be very accessible, and it's a really cool set piece. Like, don't get me wrong. They do boss fights, like, they always do a good job of making them look amazing. But it was just too easy. Like, I want something that's a challenge. I want something that makes you feel like you just beat this big bad and you achieve something. And they didn't try anything different with that. And I think that's just my expectation of them. Like, as a studio, like, I always want to see something that pushes my expectations, that pushes the boundary, that tries something new. And that is part of this expansion. I think that they played it safe. And my hope was that they wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think I've looked at it as like, there's different tiers of content difficulty, right? So I think the campaign is like the lowest level, right? So you don't have to have a lot of skill. You don't have to have a lot of like, you know, your tactics don't need to be there. If you've got multiple people, you're just going to steamroll it in general.
Right.
I think the thing that was strong about that boss fight for me is that it was different than what they've tried before. It wasn't like the Gaul fight. It was very much like you are going to recreate some of the best moments of Destiny, which is handling mobs of ads. And then you have these great set piece moments where you know, like you said, you get to, you know, kill the boss and follow instructions. But that's like the lowest tier difficulty content. And I think like you step up from there and you get to like where they were with adventures, and particularly with heroic adventures. And those are like significantly more difficult. And so I think that like the challenge that you talked about and like the tactics that are required, like they evidence themselves in other areas of the game. And so for solo content, like there is that like really, really difficult content where you really have to consider what you're doing. It's just not the story. And I think that like I was ready for it to be that way, you know? And then when you get into multiplayer content, it's the same way. You know, you have your base level strikes and those are, you know, pretty easy. But then you get into heroics and you get into Nightfall tier, and then, you know, all of that content, like it scales up. So there's different levels. And I think that the story functions well for being that bottom rung that everybody can get through. Everybody's going to experience it. And, you know, no matter what kind of player you are, like you're going to be able to complete it, or you're going to be able to do it with your friends and have a great time. Like, I think that's what they want to accomplish with it. And they want everybody to get through it. It's not supposed to be a difficulty prohibitive activity. And you're not the only one that's mentioned that you wanted it to be more challenging, but I think that I view that as a different kind of content. And it's not supposed to prohibit anybody.
And I think you're right about their intention with it. And I see that that's their intention. And, you know, I completely see how with a campaign, you want it to be accessible so that people can play it, they can finish it, they can feel a sense of accomplishment when it's done. I think that it's worth keeping in mind, though, that while obviously this couldn't happen with this expansion, they have put it out there that they want to cater the game more to hobbyists, towards more hardcore players. My hope is that with the next expansion, the campaign will be deeper, richer, have stronger design choices, I guess you could say, that are more challenging. And they did some interesting things I didn't expect in the campaign, to their merit. Like, there was a cool sparrow sequence that I thought was pretty fun. Like, they even, I'm pretty sure they used some SRL music in it.
Yeah.
Which was funny. I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure this is the SRL music. So that was kind of funny, and it was cool. You got to kind of like bob and weave and run through this kind of obstacle course, and that was fun. They had a sequence on a vehicle. Obviously, that's something that seems like they want to put in all the campaigns, just based on the Destiny 2 campaign. Like, they like their vehicle sequences. It is Bungie. They are going back to those roots. And it was a cool romp. Like I said, I just hope that they can do more in the future. I know that they can, so that I hope that they will.
Yeah, and I think that one last thing we should probably call out is, like, I don't think there is a better art team that exists in the world of like sci-fi games.
Absolutely.
Maybe even just there's like I can't even I can't even express how good the art design is, whether it's the raid layer, or whether it's the strikes, or whether it's the story missions or the environments. Like, everything is so pristine. It is so good. The weapon design is amazing. The
skyboxes, the
skyboxes, the visual, even just the design of the different areas, and like, there's so much there. Like, the really Bungie art team just knocked it out of the freaking park this time.
It really shows like where I think this really speaks to like where Bungie allows itself to push, and I think that their art design team, the guys who do their weapons and do their graphic effects and do their audio design and do their music, like, I really feel that they let those guys just push and go all out, and we get to see just how spectacular and how talented those people are, and it's really one of the most beautiful games that you can play that's really out and that has ever been out.
And the fusion of those things that you're talking about, like, it cultivates this incredible game feel. Like, and I think that in some ways, like,
it's a very unique feel.
Yeah. Honestly, I really believe that those things have had such a huge impact in why I want to be in that world. I want to be in Destiny's world because it has that, like, that hopeful realism, that, like, and that sense of adventure and that sense of like scale and it's just epic and wonderful, and like, it's so interesting. Like, when you see the art in Destiny, when you see all those things, when you hear the music, like, you see something special, and that is like the best that video games can offer on that level. Like, I really believe that it's so amazing. They really killed it on this expansion. It's just incredible. I think that's like the best part of the expansion is the fusion of those things. I think
it is. And what that makes me feel is like you said, I feel like I'm in a spectacular experience. But for me, it punctuates the fact that they are able to really push the limits on what things look like, what they feel like, what they sound like. And I wish that they were able to take that caliber of creation and apply it to their design choices sometimes, and apply it to their writing sometimes, and push our expectations further. And
I think it's fair.
Because we know anybody that's been playing Bungie games for a long time, we know their capabilities, like how many times they've made us say wow, and how many times they've intrigued us, and how many times they've provided like spectacularly fun gameplay experiences just throughout their entire I guess game backlog, that I'm not saying that there's not fun things to do in this expansion. What I'm saying is I want them to really dig deep,
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but let's talk about some of the other things that there are to play in this expansion. Infinite Forest is a big part of this total expansion. What do you think about playing the Infinite Forest and how it ties into what you can play?
So I really like it. I really like how they integrated it. I think that from a technical perspective, it probably was like a lot of work went into it. And what I hope for the future is I hope that they can integrate that into creating like these modular, areas that you kind of go through and you can kind of take a different path and see different enemies. Like I like the Infinite Forest and I like the visual design of it. I like the practical design of it. I like going through and not knowing what you're going to run into. It doesn't bum me out too much that those are only available in strikes and the adventures. It would be really cool to be able to explore it as kind of a maze, but it doesn't seem like that's what it was designed for. And so I think that I think they will use that kind of tech again because it is really cool. And I think that it's very well implemented. I think if anything, it's kind of like a proof of concept more than anything else. But I enjoy the way that it's implemented in the game. And even if like I could dream about like, oh man, it would be so cool to be able to like, if you had the past and the present and the future, like in all these different areas and you had to take like different paths through and like they morphed and changed and maybe you're on this one section and it moves somewhere else. Like you can imagine like all those cool ways that they could implement and apply the technology, but like they didn't. And I'm not too bummed out by that. I'm not, because I feel like it's a really cool proof of concept and it's something that works well in the things that they have designed for the game. And so like, once again, I know there were some people that like it didn't satisfy them because the idea of the Infinite Forest evoked in them an excitement for a specific kind of experience that it didn't deliver. And I felt fine with the fact of what it was. And I feel like it's enjoyable for what it accomplishes. And it could be a really excellent building block for something that makes it into the game later and has a more prominent role and is utilized in a bigger way. That's kind of my take of it. So I don't think it's like it's not as big as kind of I thought it was going to be, but that's fine. Like I think it works well and it accomplishes its purpose and it's interesting and it's enjoyable.
Yeah. I don't even think the size was, like I feel like it's the size. I feel like it's the size. It's even bigger in some ways than I expected. Yeah. Especially as you get through the adventures, because there's basically 3 different adventures that you can take through there that have a different endpoint, that are unique. But I think my misunderstanding of what it was kind of confused me when I got to a certain point exploring it, because I don't know if it was how they delivered the message or if it was how they were trying to explain what it was. But my perception of the Infinite Forest was it was like that was the patrol space and everything else in Mercury was kind of just an entrance into that area. And so I had this idea that the Infinite Forest was, as they kind of like, they talked us through like how you explore it. And I saw it as this place, okay, you go in and you can take whatever route you want. And there's things, like any patrol space, there'll be things to find, things to do, et cetera, et cetera. And they took us on an adventure through it. I think what they failed to explain to their detriment was that is what you do there. Like, to access this space, we're going to take you on these curated experiences using adventures, and it just didn't connect with everybody.
Yeah, I think that some of that though is I think AER0KNIGHT got in your head about horde mode, right? So I think mode, that like I think there was a lot of I think they said it. I think you're right that like people didn't hear what they were saying, and I think part of that is that they didn't explain it enough or well enough. And I think that people, like I said, I think the concept of the Infinite Forest was alluring and exciting in a way that like got people's minds going, right? And then
For sure.
there was this whole narrative about like what everybody thought it was going to be, and like I kept telling people like it's not going to be that big of a deal. Like it's going to, they've said adventures, they said strikes. Like they haven't really said what else it's going to be. I don't know. I kind of expected like you would have a patrol utility, but I didn't understand how that was going to work because it seemed like they just went on a one-way trip. But I didn't really look too much into it. And like, I understand, like you're mentioning, like it was not a patrol. It's not a patrol space. Yeah. I kind of thought it was too. So they could have done a better job at like communicating that, but I do think the community, as it is wont to do, heard the idea, loved the idea, and just ran with it. And then it became this like, it became this concept that had been kind of tainted by the community's interpretation that was incorrect.
Yeah, and I'm not super upset about it because it's not as if they said one thing and did the other. I think it was just not an entirely easy concept to show. Yeah, I think ultimately they probably, the easiest thing they could have done was prefaced it by saying, look, this is a part of the experience that you experience by doing A, B, and C. Yeah. And this is how we're going to take you through this. And that probably would have helped set our expectations a little better. But ultimately...
See, and I think they did that, but I think it was like really fast.
It wasn't as straightforward. Yeah. I think it was like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I think like to their benefit, like they didn't realize as much that they had to frame it that narrowly for us to understand the concept, like, because it's, if I think as well, if they had said, okay, like you're going to have 3 adventures and this is where you do them, people would be like, oh, that's it. You know how people will react. They'll be like, so negative and blah, blah, blah. And of course they don't want that. But all that being said, to its benefit, I think it's a really unique and interesting way for them to have that adventure mechanic. Like you said, it's sort of a proof of concept, not just for what the Infinite Forest does, but for what they can do with heroic adventures.
Agreed. And 100% agreed on that.
I found, like, AER0KNIGHT and some other people, they were talking on Twitter, my feelings on it are, if they can do with heroic adventures, if they were able to do that on a larger scale, I understand that they can't do them all in the Infinite Forest, but if they can make all the adventures heroic and give them some kind of like meaningful loot system that ties into it, it would add so much to the game.
Yeah, and I think that what we see in the Infinite Forest and with adventures, like they said this like a bunch of times leading up to the release of D2, that their intention with adventures was that they would be small single stories that people wouldn't replay, and people were basically like, you've got to let us replay it. We want to grind them out, and they're like, okay, we'll let you do them. That's why they patched in to send 4 of them to the vendor every day, right? For that planet, and like so they were not designed as replayable things. Yeah. And I think that the Infinite Forest is them saying, reacting to that feedback, which came out like pre-launch, which is right about the time that they're working on Curse of Osiris, right? Pre-launch of D2, as they're getting ready to invest resources, they said, we have to have adventures be more replayable. And if this is the direction that they take adventures in the future, like, I'm in. This was super great. I love the way that they handled heroic adventures. If the Infinite Forest is like a piece of that, or if that's a proof of concept, like, it's a great one. It's not fully developed yet. It's just kind of the beginning of it. I'm sure on some level they wanted to even show the prowess of the engineering folks that put that together, because it seemed like the way that they were describing it, it was no mean feat to create that tile set and to lock them together the way they did. So it could have been like, I mean, you want to make sure that you give your props, to the people who design that stuff when it comes out really good.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah, like, it's a cool idea.
It does create, it makes it so it's not entirely repetitive. I'm not going to lie. I think that I'll probably wear out on this within a couple weeks.
Oh, totally.
But right now I've ran a whole bunch of them. I think they're really fun. I like all three of the different adventures and you know what you do at the end of them, and even the endings of those change and can vary. And I think it all could have used some more time in the incubator. I think if I would be excited to see what had happened if they had like another month to work on it.
Well, we may see some kind of extension of this in the future. Which, by the way, did you know that the modifiers change every day for Heroic Adventures?
On the Heroic Adventures, yeah.
Which is great. That's a great change. I like that.
It makes it interesting to go back and do. And of course, you know, there's a reward tied to it, like the chance for certain materials you need and different stuff like that. So there's a reason to go and do them. And I've been going and doing them, and it's fun. And they are challenging. I think some of them I don't think are challenging enough for Heroic. And they could use some more work. But it's a really cool concept that I think has a ton of potential. Like a lot of things in this game, it's a really good foundation that if they decide to build on it, I think they can do some spectacular things with it.
Agreed.
So that's Infinite Forest. Of course, there's the kind of hybrid between these story/strikes, and you touched on that a little bit. There's 2 story missions that are actually later become strikes, and the purpose of the strike is a little bit different. I think it's the same bosses, but like the dialogue and your purpose for running it is separate when you play it as a strike.
Yes.
I read and I like looked for some videos and stuff. I hadn't actually got any of them to pop in the strike playlist yet, so I haven't played them as a strike.
I've had a bunch of them pop, so it feels like they're weighted. So I've had them pop up more than the other ones.
I keep getting like the same strikes over and over. It was driving me crazy. Like we had to like leave strikes because we were getting like 2 or 3 in the same in the row. I don't know why. It's still
that's
like,
weird. I've had it like those have been featured more prominently than the other ones. I've run them more than any other ones.
And were you just running Heroic or were you running regular strike playlists?
Just Heroic strikes. Yeah, I ran. Okay. I think I ran 20. Between 20 and 5 Heroic strikes
I haven't
this
run
week.
that many either.
Those those 2 new ones have been the most common 2 that I've done.
Yeah. So how do you feel that they played as strikes compared to the story missions?
They're awesome. I mean, I think a Garden World, which is the one when you go to the past, that is my second favorite strike in the game behind Savathun's song. I love those 2 strikes. I think they're great. I think they play great. I think that the ways that they put different enemies there, like they do in all the strikes, are really smart and intelligent. The boss battles are really fun and interesting. They have like just the right amount of like mechanics and chaos, and like I really, really like them. I think a Garden World particularly stands out, in part because just the art is so good, and in part because the encounter design is so excellent and so varied throughout the strike. And then especially the boss battle is very, very good.
What they were trying to do, and they were taking a chance with this, that's different, is, you know, building these as story missions, but also strikes. So, and I'm wondering if this choice is because, one, they want there to be more value in the campaign, as opposed to it being, okay, 3 or 5 story missions and then 2 strikes.
Well, before it's been 3 and 1. 3 story missions and 1 strike in Dark Below. 5 story missions and 1 strike in House of Wolves. Even Rise of Iron had 5 story missions and 1 strike. So the fact that like you're talking about this, like making story missions as strikes, I think is brilliant, because it gives us more strikes and more story missions. I really
like that they it's kind of a double-edged sword for me. I like that they tie into the story in a more concrete way. At the same time, I always liked how strikes told like their own mini story, like why you were there. You know, like think back to like Sepix Prime, like totally didn't fit into the campaign, but you're going to do like a unique strike to fight this enemy, and it didn't have to be part of the campaign. But they're doing something different and allowing the strike to fit into the story, ensuring that the player plays it, because some people literally, they don't go play strikes. believe it or not, Joe, I know you love strikes.
I do love me some strikes.
Some people don't go play them.
Yeah.
And so they're actually, you know, you said like how awesome it was that the campaign was so big. Mm-hmm. And part of that was because 2 really big missions sandwiched in the middle of that were actually strikes that they were able to fit as part of the campaign that fit into the story. But then also they're designed in a way that they can scale up to be a strike. They have a little bit different dialogue. You're going back, and can still fit as that other piece of content. And I think it's a cool way to kind of hit both those checkboxes, so to speak.
I agree. I think it's real smart. I hope they
make the
continue to do
campaign
it.
more robust
Yeah.
as well. So I'm totally cool with this. I know some people see it as they're, you know, like they're robbing us of the extra strike they would have produced or whatever, you know. But after seeing it implemented, and this is what I said, I want to see how it's done. When I played them in the campaign, I was like, this is one of the strikes, and that's fine.
I thought the same thing.
It played just fine as a campaign mission, but knowing that they play well as strikes individually, like, I really don't have a problem with it, because in the end, running strikes, like, they get repetitive anyways. Who cares what the story is? Like, you're talking about a one-time experience, so...
Yep, you really are with
I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
It's good.
We've got some, of course, new gear in the game. So, exotics. What are the new exotics have you got, or what do you enjoy so far that we haven't talked about?
The colony, and the colony. Oh,
we talked about
goodness.
this for a second.
Holy crap! All right, I'm gonna I'm gonna try to just keep my enthusiasm bridled just a little bit, because this might be my favorite exotic in the whole game now.
It's my new favorite by far.
It's so good. You just like, okay, so for those of you who don't know what the colony is a grenade launcher. Wait, don't turn it off. It's a grenade launcher, but it's good, okay? Here's what it does. It fires, it's a vice weapon, and it fires little robotic spiders that then go out and attack your enemies. They will home in and seek them. If it can't jump, it's gonna die. And it does like a lot of damage. You can also just like hit them with like a direct shot, and it does like this cool like smoke, like it looks like I don't know what to describe it with, but it's like this green, smoky, kind of like hazy explosion, which is really cool. It's got this awesome visual thing where when you put the clip back in, it like magnetically like pulls in. He doesn't actually like slam the clip in. It's got like, you have 7 in the mag.
You reload the clip and you just kind of place it and it like magnetically attaches.
It's so good.
Pretty cool.
Everything about the gun feels exotic. Like, it's powerful, it's interesting, it's different, like, and you could like totally miss something. Like, let's say you go to shoot him and you just miss the target completely. A lot of times the spider will hit the ground and do like a 180 and just like start running back towards its enemy.
Completely circle around. It's like tracking
so
rocket
good.
launchers back in the day. It's pretty cool.
It's great. And one of the cool things about like the colony itself, like I feel like this like evil puppet master with like my army of magical spiders, and like I was in the raid lair and like one of the call outs they gave were like, hey, Joe needs help over on this side. I'm like, no, I don't. Me and my spiders have it covered. Like, it's like, go
it's
my
really
spiders.
Cool
is great.
Ads, because you can, what I had said when you had brought it up in Discord chat, I was like, it feels like an easy button, because the tough thing with grenade launchers, right, is if you miss your target, you can really waste your time and your ammo.
Yeah.
What I like to do with the colony is, if I'm looking at like a whole row of ads, I won't shoot it to impact them. I'll literally just like point at the ground relative to them and just go boom, 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 turn around and go attack some more ads, and know behind me, if I didn't get close, they're going to circle around and they're just going to be like blowing up in the air.
It's so good.
So you can just really fast like attack a bunch of ads. And then another thing I noticed about it that I really like is that there's no grenade splash damage. So you can use it like a shotgun if you have to. Like if an enemy's right in your face, you can just stick it in its gut and it'll explode, but it won't hurt you. And I thought that was cool as well.
Yeah, it's so incredible. Like,
Super
I want to
fun
get
gun.
some of the other guns. There's a lot of really cool exotics in this expansion. I think I've gotten like 7 or 8 of the new ones. And so I've gotten.
Wow, so you have a lot of them.
I do, yeah. I got mostly armor stuff, like of the new exotics, but like I love the feel of them. But like the colony stands head and shoulders above it. I don't have the crimson yet, which I really want to get. That's that Red Death.
I want that.
Cannon.
Yeah,
and I don't have that one yet. But the colony is like, oh my goodness, it's just so much fun. It really fulfills that like fantasy. Like you mentioned, like I will sometimes just point it straight at the ground in front of stuff and just be like, "Go, my minions!" You know, it's just I legitimately say that like in the chat, and like people that I'm playing with must think I'm just an absolute weirdo. Well, they know that's the case, but I cannot get over how fun it is. It's satisfying, it's interesting, and like you said, it's super effective. Like you can use it as a shotgun, you can use it as a, as an ad clear. You can just, you can shoot it and then forget about it and know those ads are dying. Like there was one time where I fired like 3 spiders on the ground to chase after this captain, and he was like an orange bar, right? And it was on the strike where you're coming up and there's like a big cliff face. And the first spider hits him, and he tries to like dodge the spider and like teleport away, but it like hits him and he bounces off, and then the next spider comes and bounces him again, and he like literally like flew off the cliff, and the third spider like chased him down the side of the cliff trying to get at him. And it was like, yeah.
The best part is how they fly in the air when
it's so great.
If they're on the ground, it's pretty good.
So the colony.
We talked about Prometheus Lens, which I think is equally amazing. Like they've done a really great job with their new stuff. I got what was the name of it? Vesper of Radius, which is an exotic chess piece for the Warlock. Has a really specific utility. Basically, it gives you like an arc area of effect when you throw down a rift, which is cool because it gives you kind of an offensive capability. And I've been using it a lot in PvE to get out of like sticky situations where you might be swarmed by ads. So you're already in a tough spot. You might need some extra healing or what have you. You throw that down, bops all the little ads out of your area, so it gives you a little room, does some damage. Pretty fun.
Yeah, I got that one, but I haven't tried it out yet because, I'm on that Void Lock, and I keep charging up those scatter nades, and then they're just like mini nukes, just blowing everything up. And so it's really hard to not play that when I'm on my Warlock, but I'll have to give it a shot because it sounds really fun. Yeah,
it's good. This Aeon Soul /Swift /Safe.
Yeah, have you used that yet?
Exotic. I have not. I want to get a couple buddies to put it on so we can like run a strike or try something. And man, I'm wondering if this plus what is the hand cannon that I'm thinking of? The
one where
Rat King.
Yeah, Rat King.
Could be like some interesting gameplay.
See, I love that they're doing these like I don't think they need to do like a ton of set stuff. Right? They don't want the set stuff to be super overpowered, but this is a way for you to like coordinate with your team and do something that's kind of fun. It doesn't impact it so much, but like I feel the same way as you. Like I want to get a group of people, like put on your Aeon stuff, and then let's just go check it out. Let's see what it does. Let's see how effective it is. In the same way that people did with Rat King, right? And they try to do the raid with 6 Rat Kings. I want to see them continue to develop these kinds of ideas. I love that they're adding this kind of stuff to the game.
I think it's a cool idea, and the actual items like look really cool on all the characters.
Yeah, they're awesome.
They have like
looking.
the bluish like spikes that come out of the arms, like the little conduit things. They look really cool. So there's some things that I want to play with, to check out how they play and
have you heard about the hunter pants? I forget what they're called.
The Gemini Jester.
Yeah, have you messed around with those? I just got them, and I haven't gotten a chance to play with them yet.
I read a couple people talking about them. Apparently, you have to be really like up close for the perk to proc. Which, if you haven't seen it, it basically when you do your not shade step,
your dodge,
your dodge, it produces it disorients your enemy. Apparently, the effect is like akin to like getting staggered, so your aim and your radar stops and your aim is a little off, like you're almost staggered. But you've got to be like up close with somebody, which, you know, is situational. It could be really good for those 1v1s or a good escape or something like that. But I think it's a cool tool.
See, I want to use it with that one tree where basically you can refund your dodge with your melee and your melee with your dodge.
That could be...
See, that's what I was thinking, because what you do is when you do that, like, melee dodge combo, like, you're getting bonus damage for your melee, and you can refill it. And so, like, the idea is that you're, like, dodge, melee, and, like, if you're doing that in the middle of, like, a cluster of ads, and, like, they're all blind, like, you're just melee dodging everywhere, and nothing can shoot at you because...
Which I love that combo.
It sounds really fun. Like, I want to give it a shot in PvE. I don't think I would use it in PvP. I just feel like you're just talking about, like, it's you got to be really close, and it's not really going to affect the majority of your encounters, but, like, it could have that, like, really fringe application. But, like, I'm so excited to try it out in PvE.
So I want to ask your opinion on one thing. I was looking through a list basically of all the new exotic armors, weapons. So 6 of the 12 armors are Destiny 1 exotics. 2 of the 5 weapons are Destiny 1 exotics. How do you feel about that number?
Oh, I think that's great. Like, I think that if they're using old stuff to enhance, first of all, like, there was utility that we got from those exotics, right, in D1. And some of the exotics they're bringing forward were ones that really were underutilized. But in the current sandbox and with the current set of abilities and the way that they've redesigned the trees, like, they now have new life. And, like, I think of, you know, a really great example of a well done, you know, brought back exotic from vanilla was the Skull of Dire Ahamkara, which gains the Skull of Dire Ahamkara's ability that it makes you more tanky when you're casting your Nova Bomb, but it also adds the Obsidian Mind ability from Destiny 1, where Nova Bomb kills refund your super energy. And so I like the idea of them taking those two abilities and, like, combining them. I really like what they did with, like, the MK44 stand-asides in this expansion with the Titans, where it, like, is really just it's a shoulder charge machine. And so it gives you, like, an overshield. So it gives you basically a Juggernaut, which was a perk on the original Striker tree. And then it also gives you your shoulder charge, refunds half of your shoulder charge ability if you land your shoulder charge. So, like, I like the idea of them bringing them forward and then outfitting them to fill specific, like, areas. So I think some people are like, they want the new stuff. And, like, I totally understand that. But I think that for me, like, you make the experience more robust to take something that has already been designed and to repurpose it in a way that is going to be more meaningful than it ever was in Destiny 1. I mean, how did you ever run stand-asides? I never did.
No.
But I ran them in D2 already. And I see the utility. So I think that, like, it's not necessarily about, like, I'm fine with them reusing some of those assets or those names. But my biggest thing is, like, does the purpose add to gameplay? And if it does, I don't care if it's named the same thing as something that was in D1. Like, if it's going to add something to the gameplay experience and to the options that I have as a player, like, I'm fine with that. Like, if it's going to make more, my thought is it makes it so that there are more exotics that are in play for us to get than less. And so if that's the case, like, if the option was, you know, get 2 new exotic armor pieces or 6 reused ones with better functionality, I'll take the 6 with better functionality over the 2 new ones. But that's just how I think about it. So I love the new stuff. I'm fine with the old stuff coming back, and I love the new utility that's being designed for each of the old ones. Yeah.
I think some people's feelings, and I'm kind of in the middle on it. Some people feel like their total attitude is, wow, they took away all of our gear from Destiny 1 and wiped the slate clean, and now they're selling it back to us. Like, which, like, there's a perspective that has some validity there. Like, it has some merit to that attitude, but at the same time, like you're saying, all the exotics that they have brought forward, they've made them more robust. Like, they've improved their functionality in some ways. Like, they combine different things. They make them have some impact so that they're not useless. Like, I mean, to be frank, like, there was just certain exotics in Destiny 1 that were just boring and didn't do enough for you to want to use your exotic slot on it, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of exotics that, like, while they may fit a niche, like, they can feel really powerful if used well. And that's a large majority of them. And I like how they're reworking a lot of the exotics that they're bringing forward.
Yeah.
And then there's some that, like, there's just exotics that people really loved the ability, like stuff like Graviton Forfeit. You know, things like Ophidian Aspect. Like, that thing was every Warlock's best friend when that came out, and people are super stoked to have it back.
Yeah.
To get those abilities in Destiny 2. So, like, there's some things that it's like, man, yeah, they're bringing it back, but it was so much fun. Like, we want it to be back, you know?
and part of it that you mentioned I think is really good is that, like, they took a lot of the ones that were underutilized and made them utilizable. Like, they feel good, they feel important. Like, as an example, like in Destiny 1, I basically only ran with like a couple exotics in my inventory at any given time. And in Destiny 2, I just struggle to put any in the vault because I want to use them. And they all seem fun. They all have their own utility, you know?
Well, there's probably like 2 more things we need to talk about.
Yeah, I agree.
Super high
We're
on
already
time
like
here.
Way over time. So once again, to those of you who like it when you have long commutes, you're welcome. And to those of you who don't have a lot of time, we're sorry.
Yep. Can't win them all, unfortunately.
And if I'm on the episode, you can guarantee it'll go long. So.
Yep. They're like, oh, Joe's on. This is going to be a long one. We have fun, though, when we talk about this stuff.
We do.
So, Forge. And I've been grinding at this Forge this week, man. What do you think about the implementation and the weapons that we've seen?
I love it. I think I've got all 4 weapons this week. I really love the way that they handle the material thing. By the way, when you complete all four weapons, you do not gain any more materials for the rest of the week, which I think is a good thing. I like that they only gave us 4 to grind instead of giving us all 11 right away, because I was tired of grinding after I got the 4th one done.
It's
all
a lot.
Weapons
it's a lot of grinding.
Yeah, it is. And I kind of like that they added it. Like, I think that one thing that Luke Smith talked about when they were coming up to D2 is he said that if we can provide players for an opportunity to like double dip, where they feel like they're kind of like gaming the system, right? They're, you know, oh, I'm going to do public events, and I'm also going to get progress on this thing, and I'm going to get progress on the Flashpoint, and I'm going to get progress on my challenges. Like, if you can give them opportunities to stack things that they're doing, like, it's more satisfying, and they feel clever, and they feel like it's you know, it's rewarding. And I think that the Forge is like, it's that extra layer. Like, it's not the silver bullet that's going to make investment feel good in Destiny 2, but it's just one more way that you can tap into that feeling and feel like you're making that time worthwhile, and that you're able to get some of that grind back. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed grinding for him. It was definitely a grind. It took a long time to get those materials. Yeah,
which, like, is fine, I think, as far as kind of the amount of effort you've got to put out. Like, they totally designed it as a thing like you've got to spend a lot of time in the game to do.
Yeah. Which ones did you go after?
Somewhat. So far I have the Scout, which of course is the first one, and then I got a Pulse.
Ooh, that Pulse is pretty fun.
It's a high impact Pulse, which I just got that one, and then I'm working on. I'm not sure what the other one is.
Is it 6 or 3?
I think it was 3.
That's the hand cannon.
Okay.
The hand cannon's pretty good. It's an energy hand cannon, which I normally don't really like. It's got lightweight, which I also don't usually like on hand cannons. But I do like this one a lot. It's got a really good feel to it. Like, the handling, I think, is off the charts. Like, it's actually, I think the handling is almost maxed. And you can tell. Like, it has a really, really good weight to it. It has a really good feel to it. And you strafe faster, so it feels like you're a little bit more mobile. Like, I don't know. It had a good feel to it. It wasn't the best hand cannon I've used in the slot, but it wasn't bad. And I feel like that's kind of my evaluation of all of the weapons so far. Like, they're good, but not great, which is fine. Like, that's what you want out of a gun that you invest in, and that requires some time. Is like, it's kind of a collector's item. It looks really, really cool. It's extremely unique, and it's good and usable, but not great. Yeah,
the actual items themselves look really pretty.
Yeah.
And they have a very unique look about them. You can tell like the weapon model underneath it, but that's kind of the intent, is that it was once a weapon that then Osiris like modified heavily with Vex tech, and so you get this kind of, kind of like the what was the Rise of Iron? The Siva, changed weapons. Like you can kind of see how they evolved. But I think like a lot of people's opinion so far of them have been a little disappointment in that it is a really heavy investment and some of the guns kind of fall flat.
Yeah. That's fair. They can't all be epic and amazing though.
It's tough because it's tough guns. Because you can't necessarily just say, okay, like we're going to put the best 11 legendaries in the game behind this forge system. Like that would bite back. That would be tough for some people to swallow. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like it's such a big investment that some people feel like they want a bigger reward for their investment. Mm-hmm. So there's that tough line to walk of like, okay, it's a collector's item, but at the same time, you want something that is not just a collector's item, but is also really awesome, a la, Fatebringer or things like that. And they've said, like, very specifically, like, Destiny 1 players talk about all the time, like, vaulted glass weapons. And they've said so many times, like, we'll never make guns like that again because they were the most overpowered legendaries in the game, and
nothing could compete.
They overshadow everything. Yeah, and that's all people would play with. Hopefully, what I'm hoping is that there's maybe a couple diamonds in the rough that could be like best in their class.
Yeah.
That make the whole thing worth it. But we'll just have to see how they.
I will say the SMG is the best, I think, of the four.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's surprisingly
I haven't
good.
seen that one yet, so.
But yeah, I think that, and if you think about ratios, like generally, I think I read somewhere that in Destiny weapons, like about 20% are considered like really good. So if that ratio holds, we're looking at 2 of the 11 being really good.
Yeah, at least a couple, 2, maybe 3.
We've still got 7 to get, so.
Sure. Yeah. And then, I did see a leak, like, at least something pulled out of the data mine that there's a very unique weapon that I'll want just to have it.
Yeah.
I won't spoil what that is because it may be a surprise and be interesting for some people, but if you know what I'm talking about, okay. I'll tell you. I'll tell you when we finish the show.
All right. Now I'm curious.
This could make it worth
the show. Let's get this done.
Burning all of them. Yeah. Okay. So last really important thing is just our overall thoughts on the raid lair. You and I both, like, either of us have been able to finish it 100%, but out of what you have seen, what were your thoughts?
I think it is exceptional. I think it's great. Super, super awesome. Once again, the visual design is absolutely incredible. And the encounters feel like they're kind of interesting. They're kind of fun. It's a shorter experience, which I actually prefer. I don't like to spend a ton of time raiding. And so I feel like that condensed package really, really works for me. And I feel like the raid lair like went a lot of really interesting places, both visually and like story wise. And I like the decision to keep the raid, like to do one big raid and then have the other 2 be branches of it that they're doing this year. And I'm really excited for the next one. I'm really excited to finish this one. And I'm very positive on it.
Yeah.
How about you? What did you think?
I have seen most opinions on the raid lair to be super positive. I agree overall. Like everything that I've seen was really fun. It was different. I think this particular piece of the content is an area that Bungie allowed their team to go do something like different, to do something just awesome. And in the ways that they tried to do that, like, I think they knock it out of the park. People are saying the raid boss is their favorite and one of the best that they've ever done. I haven't beat it yet, so I can't give my final opinion on that. Like, we got to the final encounter, but it was really late. Somebody had to go, and we're going to try to take another crack at it tomorrow evening. But I thought it was really different and interesting. Like, it is smaller in scale, like as far as the length of the content, so to speak, which is what they promised, and I'm totally cool with it. Like, it allows them, I think, to do more in less, if that makes sense. Like, so that they can do something bigger in a smaller package, and like that's kind of what they promised, and they did it in a way that is even surprising, like what they were able to accomplish inside that package. Like, without getting specific, like there were super big like wow moments that I didn't see coming multiple times. There's the jumping puzzle, like platforming aspect that we didn't get out of Leviathan. So I was happy to see some of that, because everybody, like, you love it, but you hate it. Yeah. But it's cool, you know? And then getting to the boss, like, it's incredible. It really is. It's just incredible. Like, to see, it's really fun. Like, something that the raid team has done that I really, really admire in Destiny 2 is their ability to make the encounters fun in a way that we haven't seen before. And to, like, they're not leaning on old design mechanics.
They are not. They're definitely
not at all. Like, they are pushing forward, and that is something that I really, really enjoy. You know, even in Leviathan, like, I really do enjoy that raid, but this is really unique. And it's almost sad to know how few people are going to tackle this, because it is definitely an experience that if you're not doing this, you are missing a huge part of your money's worth.
Yeah,
out of this
I honestly think that in the future I will take people on the lair before I go take them on the raid. I honestly believe that will be my tactic.
I think that's good. I think that's a good decision and a good idea. Like, because it's a little shorter, it's more compact. And it's
excellent. In some ways, like, the visual design makes it feel bigger than Leviathan.
Oh yeah,
even though it's not. Like, it's significantly smaller.
Well, it's a bigger space.
Well, even not even the space, but just like the feel of the space, the aesthetic of the space, like once again the design of, like, it really is good. If you haven't played it, go play it. It's wonderful.
It's cool that they're able to capitalize on the existing space that they have, like the Leviathan ship as a whole, to do something that cool within that space. It fits in the lore, or the story of what's happening in our world right now in the game, and it ties in. I don't want to spoil too much, but super cool. I would highly encourage anybody to go check it out and try to go play through it at least once. It's really spectacular. So I think really, like, all my thoughts withstanding of how I felt about the expansion, like the raid lair, really pushed me into a super positive feeling about what we got, because they're knocking it out of the park there.
Yeah.
So
I think my overall thoughts, it wasn't really that good. No, I'm just kidding. I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and I continue to love it. I literally, so DLC came out for Zelda, and that, Cyborg, this is my favorite single player game of all time, is Zelda. Yeah. I literally have not put more than an hour into the Zelda DLC because I just want to play Destiny. I'm out of milestones. I've done all the milestones on all 3 characters. I don't remember the last time I did that, except for, like, Trials in the Raid, because I don't really do that stuff. I'm just grinding out ornaments, and I'm having a blast. It's wonderful. And like I said, at the beginning and in the middle, this is probably the best week of Destiny 2 I've ever played. This is my most fun that I've had in the game. So,
well, I'm glad that you're having fun. I've had fun myself. I think that there's a lot of mixed feelings about it. I think that there is fun to be had if you go and look for it and decide to enjoy it. I think there's room for improvement. I think that it absolutely needs to be said. People have to realize that Bungie is listening, and they are actively talking and working on ways to improve the game in ways that we can feel. But it needs to be said, like, what Curse of Osiris was decided and born before Destiny 2 dropped. And as soon as that game came out, they immediately went into full production on this expansion. And whatever it was going to be, it had to be at that time, and you cannot change the direction of an expansion like this, like halfway through, because they only had like 2 months to really fully produce it. So,
and that's where the quality of life stuff comes from. I think that's the stuff that is dropping now, like with the Masterworks weapons this week and stuff last week. Like, that's the stuff that we're getting. That is the pivot. I agree with you. The content was already made.
And I think my point is, like, even with decisions that they may have made about this expansion, we may have seen things differently if this came out like 3 months later. Like even things that I brought up or even things that I didn't bring up. I think that they may make different choices in their next DLC because they have the opportunity to pivot on what they feel is important. Unfortunately, like, if it didn't hit, all the sweet spots for you, this probably wasn't the DLC to do it. You know what I mean? And so, while unfortunately we've said it so many times before, I think we need to give the studio a little bit more time and see what they've got next up their sleeve if this didn't do it for you. Yeah,
definitely.
So, all right, man. That was a great, very in-depth discussion. Of course, we had so much to talk about this week, and this will continue to unfold. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this with me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for being willing to brave inviting the raving lunatic who loves this game on.
It's tough to do, but I can live with it. Let's do some Dirt Fam discourse, though, before we jump out.
Yeah, Dirt Fam.
All right, we've got a speak pipe from your buddy, Mr. Thaden.
Yeah.
Let's take a listen.
Hey, Dirt Fam. Thaden here. First, real quick, Cyborg Arrow, thank you so much for the show you guys put on every week. I love it. I look forward to it every week. I wanted to give a quick shout-out to Scully, Mulder, and TX Andyman for our quick meetup that we had last week outside Chicago. Grabbed some drinks and some food and just got to talk about our favorite game. So thanks so much, you guys. It was a great time, and I look forward to doing it anytime. Just let me know. About to drive home and jump into that brand new shiny Curse of Osiris DLC. So hope everyone else is enjoying it, and I'll see you in there. Guardians out.
Man, Thaden, always good to hear from you. Thaden's one of my regular Fire Team guys, and along with guys like Dreadnought and Andyman and Manny, those guys I play with a lot. And Thaden here shouting out his meetup with Andy, Scully, and Mulder. So I know that they had a great time, and
I'm always excited seeing and hearing about guys getting together.
Yeah, it's awesome. So Andy was, he happened to be out in that area, and it was funny. I was in the party one night talking with both of them, and, they were mentioning, oh, I'm near you on this trip that I'm on. And Andy was like, well, I'll let you know, like, when I'm coming through. And Thaden said, like, I didn't think he was going to call me. He totally did. He's like, yeah, I'll be there in an hour, when he was like coming actually through there. So it's cool to see the fam like getting together and spending time. And they said it was like a really fun experience. And so thanks for chiming in there and giving the shout out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dirt Fam Discourse is where you get to sound off. So if you've got something you'd like to say, maybe a comment on something we talked about in the show, if you got a question for us, or if you'd like to give a shout out to some of your fellow Guardians, you can do so. You can leave a SpeakPipe at speakpipe.com/DestinyReset, or you can send us an email, DestinyResetPodcast@gmail.com. All right. We have, as usual, we usually give out our patron shout-outs. Of course, we had so many new patrons in November. We don't have any new ones this week, but we appreciate all the support we've gotten. One thing that I do need to address real quickly here, without getting too deep into it, we did find out this past week that Patreon is making some changes to how they handle certain fees for their patrons. It used to be you would give us a donation, and Patreon would take a certain percentage and then another percentage for the processing, and that would come out of our end. We've always been perfectly cool with that. That was kind of the cost of using that platform. Unfortunately, they've made some changes that affect us in the net positive, but affect you, our patrons, what I see is, in a not great way. Basically, they're going to start to tack on those fees to what you pay, and just give us the in donation. But I think it needs to be said so that you know where your money's going and how much money you're going to be spending. We understand if that impacts what you can give, and that's kind of just part of what it's going to be like to use Patreon. But I would encourage you to go to Patreon's website, look into what those changes will mean as far as dollars and cents. We'd love to hear from you if you're a patron and if you have feelings about how that impacts you. We ultimately want to make sure that that is an experience that is positive for you when you decide to give to us. And if we need to explore other options, we will. But for the time being, we're going to stay the course. All that being said, if you want to be a patron of the podcast and support us financially, support our production budget, you can do that for as little as $1 a month by going to patreon.com/destinyreset. We appreciate all of our patrons. We give them shout outs on the show. We put your name on the website. You get access to a special channel in our Discord, among other things. So thank you if you are supporting us in that way.
Definitely.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Let's wrap this thing up, Joe. We got to let these people go home.
Seriously. I think this is the longest episode you guys have done, right?
It might be. I think it is.
Yeah. I did something right. I mean,
you did
different.
You did something remarkable.
Yeah.
Joe, if people want to sound off and talk with you, man, where can people find you?
I'm always lurking about in the Discord, so if you break a rule, I might be talking to you, or if you just want to talk to me on a more amicable level, you can always just find me on the Discord, Joe the Meaden. I'm the big taco face dude. Or you can look me up on Twitter. I don't post a lot, but I am active in reading stuff, and I try to reply to things. So my Twitter handle is JR.Meaden. My last name spelled Mieden. That's how my gamer tag is spelled. You can also find me on Xbox. I play a lot on Xbox and very, very little on PlayStation.
There you go.
Same gamer tag as Joe the Meaden.
All right. You can find me at CyborgSasquatch on Twitter and Twitch. And then finally, you can find us at Destiny Reset on Twitter and www.destinyresetpodcast.com. That's your source for all things DRP, including links to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Finally, we would love if you drop us an iTunes review. Helps us get seen by more listeners looking for a show that has to do with Destiny. So if you're listening on iTunes and you haven't done so yet, please go leave us an honest review. Helps us get seen by more people and heard by more Guardians. All right, man. Thanks again for coming on the show, Joe.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on. It's always good to hang with you. And like you've said before, it's just like party chat with your friends. So
that's right.
It's good stuff.
I'll see you in the Infinite Forest, buddy.
Definitely.
All right. Until next week, have fun playing Destiny 2, and take care, Guardians.